right. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudcast number 349, Spider-Man Class and Militarization in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is by a YouTuber of the name of verilybitchie, a YouTuber who has about 36,000 subs, and this video has about 9,000 views. Came out in February of this year. It is a 26-minute video, so this will take some time. I watched about half of it. Doesn't say too many silly things, mostly on topic, mostly talking about the content of Spider-Man, but a lot of interludes, a lot of asides where they just say something about a rich guy comes to help poor, smart kid to fight wars or something like that. I haven't watched the Spider-Man films as well as the MCU films, so I don't know exactly what the whole deal is with Tony Stark. But if you want to read into it and use a political lens to identify characters as behaving some way, fine. That's totally cool. You can do that. It's your conclusions and how you get there, which I have problems with. So we'll see what this person has to say. And if all you have to do is learn about the video, if you don't want to watch it, look at the description itself. I go full freaking bread tube, feral in this one. Sorry, Lamau. And then they talk about their love of Spider-Man and why they're so emblazoned by it. I don't know. Odd stuff.
So is this a guy, a girl, a trans man, a trans woman, someone LARPing as trans that is just gay? Or what is this?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It looks like a guy with long hair. And apparently the autobiography of writing a story about romance, being queer and bisexual and whatever is, their thing. So they wrote a book.
So, yeah. Okay, so probably gay LARPing as trans, not really knowing what the real condition is.
You know what? That sounds about right. I don't know. I really don't know.
I just looked up the first 5 seconds and was like, what the fuck is this person?
Yeah. So good for them.
Nothing makes sense.
They wrote a book. I don't like people who write autobiographies or biographies in general, especially when they're that young.
In their 20s.
Yeah. I don't like that. But I do encourage people to write books. So if you want to start by writing what you know, and it happens to be a biography, great. I wouldn't recommend publishing it for various reasons, but just to get experience, I recommend starting with something you enjoy, like fiction, having a fun time, trying to make other people happy. That is probably the best idea. Now, if you want to do a sad story, you want to do a romance, you want to do something a little more dramatic, and you think you have the skill for that, hey, I'm all for it. But start with something simpler. So,
and there's nothing wrong with writing diaries, keeping your memories written down, because they will fade, and it can help you process some things of your past that the longer it takes will be harder to uncover again. And even then, if you come back to your old notes, you can see how much you've changed from that, or whether you've gained new insights from that. However, that does not mean you should just publish that stuff in your 20s. Like, that's not... You haven't lived enough for that.
Yeah, I would recommend...
Very, very few people have lived enough in their 20s to justify doing that.
Yeah, usually what happens is people write stories and they give them to their friends or their boyfriends and girlfriends to read just to see what their opinion is. And that's normal. That's fine. In my case, when I got published, it was part of a class that we not only edited our own work, we took them apart for weeks. So it wasn't just my take. It was like 12 other people plus my PhD teacher. And I was lucky to get picked. Like, there was so many short stories you had to choose from to get published with in an anthology. So that was just lucky for me. And that was just the course that he taught that allowed students to get published, which it wasn't a big deal. It was kind of cool to put on your resume. But other than that, to get published takes effort. It's not just, I have feelings and thoughts, I'm going to write a story. It's like, no, it's not. It's not going to compete. You're not going to be doing very well up on the shelf with everyone else, the big boys. So anyway, I still encourage it. Just get a good editor. And if the editor thinks it's good, then they will recommend getting it published. And you can keep writing, keep going, keep experimenting, keep being creative. Always, always good. So anyway, let's get on topic. We're talking about Spider-Man in the MCU, something I know very little about. Luckily, I have Wisp and Eric with me, who know much more than I do. So that should be enough for us to check the lore of this video, which I'm sure is very detailed because this person loves Spider-Man and watched all the Spider-Man movies and comics and apparently the cartoons as well. So lots of good lore to look at and talk about. Anyway, 26 minutes. You guys ready?
No.
Yeah.
Well, neither am I, but I'm going to watch it anyway. Alrighty, here we go.
This is the second-class guy from New York City and a billionaire who saved the Marvel Universe. Also Spider-Man and Iron Man, I talk about them too. Stanley Martin Lieber, born 1922, grew up in a working-class family in New York City, living in a one-bedroom apartment with his brother and both his immigrant parents. When he entered into the comic book writing world, he did so using his pen name, Stan Lee, because, as an aspiring writer, it would be embarrassing to be associated with comic books. Lee developed Spider-Man with artist Steve Ditko, who also came from a working-class immigrant family. Spider-Man was so expected to fail by the publisher that it was attached to the final issue of a comic series which was already being cancelled, Amazing Adult Fantasy, which is disappointingly less disgusting than it sounds. But people loved this awkward teen wall crawler, and he was given his own series. In its simplest form, Spider-Man is the story of a teenage boy who's bitten by a radioactive spider, and instead of dying from radiation poisoning, he gains incredible abilities, which are not actually very spider-like. He shoots webs out of his hands, and he has precognitive abilities, but he has a spider on his chest. It counts. I grew
And
up
he climbs walls.
the 90s Spider-Man cartoon and reading Spider-Man comics, and when the 2002 Spider-Man film came out,
He climbs walls. Did this guy mention that he climbs walls?
No.
They're just trying to be funny. I get it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, but wall climbing is kind of important. It's an actual spider thing that Spider-Man does.
Lots of other insects have silk and produce that, so it's not just unique to spiders. Yeah. So, and they do shoot it out, but
and the precognition is the spider senses. It's not too literal, but it's a take on many insects being very receptive to very, very light disturbances in the air. For spiders, that is especially also the case with vibrations in their nets that they react towards. And due to these abilities, many insects are able to dodge predators. Or is also the reason why flies don't get hit by raindrops when it's raining. They can fly outside because the air pressure is pushing them aside, which makes it look like, if you watch a fly through the rain in slow motion, it looks like the fly is dodging all of the raindrops, when in reality,
that's cool.
It's being pushed aside by the air pressure. And the Spider-Man spider senses are basically inspired by that, and maybe by a lack of understanding how these things really worked in the 60s, was it? But that's all fine.
Yeah,
he's a superhero, and the radioactive spider doesn't need to work like a real spider in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah, there's all kinds of wonderful science we look at for insects. The multi-sided eyeball of the fly. How fast they can react to things, which is about 16 times faster than the human or something like that. So there's all kinds of wonderful animalistic adaptations that insects have used to survive much bigger predators or bigger creatures than themselves. So this is fine. It's fantasy. It's cool. Imagine a man who has the abilities of an insect. Cool. Why not?
Yeah. The idea in the end, yes, Spider-Man is not pooping webs out of his ass. Okay. What Spider-Man is his abilities resemble the abilities of spiders.
Yeah, it's like
that's what it's about. And in some iterations, he's not shooting actual webs from his body.
Right, the one in the show.
He's making mechanical devices that shoot substances that are icky and can turn into webs, which is it depends on the iteration of Spider-Man that we're talking about.
The animated one definitely had him have cartridges that he made, and he had to constantly refill. So he was always running out of webbing. Had to rely on his strength and speed to stomp people. So yeah, there's all kinds of versions of Spider-Man, how it works, how it doesn't, and you're right.
Yeah, there's even been a version, I think, in the comics where he did some sort of experiment and he could actually shoot web naturally, so he didn't even need the web shooters. I think it was the Ultimate series. I can't quite remember.
There was also one of the animated series arcs I remember as a kid. Was when he was infected by, maybe it was even twice, infected by, God, my brain, Venom, because Venom can do weird things naturally because he's a weird creature, and the other one was where he was turning into a spider monster, which gave him the ability to shoot webs naturally. I think those two things happen, but it's I haven't rewatched the series since I was a kid, so don't take me too hard up on it. So the if you want to rant on Spider-Man, at least I don't see the joke here by leaving out the wall climbing.
That's fine.
It's
fine. They're doing the goofy sort of jokey. It's this thing with the stuff I can't remember, and then it just cuts.
And I'm gonna run with confused gay dude because the gender dysphorics I know they would feel ashamed jumping around in a skin-tight spider suit where your body has absolutely no female traits. Sorry. The lipstick doesn't help.
Okay, Wisp.
That's just my personal opinion.
All right. Okay. Let's keep going.
I was so excited, obsessed. Spider-Man started me on comic books, actually. I collected over 1,000 comics until I was too poor and I had to sell them all. Poverty.
You sold them all? What? Holy crap. That's like, imagine buying like all these comics from the 80s or 90s or whatever and just selling them all. Okay.
Maybe it was a joke.
It was a pity joke.
I guess if you're a fan of, and you buy 1,000, that's a lot of comics, and you're making a joke about that. Are you making a joke about being a fan or not? I need to know this, because you either are a fan or you're not. And if you are a fan, you would never sell that stuff. I mean, I have comic books I've never sold. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of those comic books, but I like them a lot. Wouldn't want to give them away. Maybe they're worth more today, but I don't care. I want them. They're mine.
I don't know. Maybe it's weird.
That's
why I think it's a joke. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fine.
The things I'm too attached to ever part with.
Well,
some of them have monetary worth. Others only have sentimental worth and no monetary worth. And that's the thing about sentimental worth. That's infinite.
Okay.
Which is the main point of the video. Part of what defined Spider-Man from the beginning was his relationship to class. Beyond the
So because Spider-Man or Peter Parker was part of a class of what?
The societal class. According to this video maker, Spider-Man is part of the working class.
He's a kid in school. He's a teenager. He doesn't have a job yet.
Well, he either works at a newspaper or he works as a scientist intern.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know. Scientist intern. I wouldn't call that working class.
Even in the video game, as an adult, he was a partner, I believe, with Otto Octavius.
Partner.
Yeah, they were doing what is it, R&D?
That's not working class.
Yeah.
You're a kid. You're literally a
that's
kid.
a few strata above that.
The best we could say, he's part of science class or biology or, I don't know, chemistry, whatever he studies. Everything in high school? I don't know.
The only
No, he is quite a genius because the web shooters, if you go with that iteration, they require quite the engineering skill as well.
Yeah, when you think about it, is it air pressure? Is it water pressure? Is it mechanical? Like, how do you do that? It's kind of, plus the connection between that and your fingers to make them fire based off your movement. So there's some sort of, storing of energy and releasing it. Pretty neat stuff.
You push the button and the webs come out.
Yeah, he's a mechanical engineer. He's a chemical engineer. He's like all these things. It's like, this guy's amazing. So I don't think the spider bite gave him like knowledge on how to build stuff. I think that was natural. So.
No, he always had that knowledge in his head.
Right.
He needed a way to travel around New York, and that's how he got the idea of spider webs.
Because of the traffic.
Yeah.
The traffic jams. Is it I'm not solid on that part, but is it similar to Steve Rogers, who was bright to begin with, but the super serum made him even brighter? Because as we talked about yesterday, as Captain America, he can throw the shield the way he does and catch it again, because he can make the calculations in his head. I don't think he was able to do that before the super serum. And maybe that's a similar thing going on with Peter Parker.
There are some weird statements in the comics where he has a higher connection between his senses and his brain. He could process things faster. Apparently he could see things faster. That doesn't make any sense. There's all sorts of silly things that don't make any sense. But yes, he is a superhuman. He does things a lot stronger, faster, and better than the average human. Jump really high.
I think seeing things faster is probably just a very bad choice of words to describe
reaction time.
The processing speed and noticing details and so on.
Maybe, yeah. I'm like, what the hell does that? Does he look at light fast? Like, how does that? Does light? Does he alter the laws of physics?
Maybe the goggles in his eyes. I don't know.
Maybe he has a special type of rhodopsin that dissolves faster and regenerates faster than normal rhodopsin.
Maybe his ocular lens is more sensitive to light or some bullshit. You're like, okay, that doesn't sound right. Even
makes sense to me.
Yeah, and that's too much detail nerdery than that comic needs.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
The Weird Spider-Man is the story of a teenage boy who loses his uncle, the person who provides for their family. When Uncle Ben dies, Peter blames himself for not saving him. Aunt May can't afford to pay their rent, so despite being at school full-time and playing superhero to atone for his uncle's death, Peter also has to find a way to support his family. His main source of income is selling Spider-Man selfies to a newspaper which hates Spider-Man.
He's a menace to the entire city! I want that wall-crawling arachnid prosecuted!
He has to put his pride and his reputation aside just so his family can survive. He must be a hero, but it will forever be a thankless job. This has been a pretty significant part of Spider-Man's story through most
mostly
of his
what a hero is.
The 1967 Spider-Man cartoon portrays Peter and May's money problems. In the 1977 film, Peter spends half the movie desperately trying to borrow money off people.
Would you settle for a poverty-stricken grad student?
In the first episode of the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, Aunt May can't afford to pay the bills, so Peter sets out to get photographs of the lizard to sell to the Daily Bugle. Bills are
okay, we get it. This is consistent throughout all the stories. Great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
He's poor.
He might. Yeah, you don't need
He's
to.
poor and tries to make money
example.
to not just not get himself evicted, but his aunt.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
We don't need
That's
this
a constant.
reiterated. Yeah, it's throughout all the stories. Great, good stuff.
Well, hey! Look at it positively. At least this lefty gives us a bunch of evidence for a claim that was made.
Okay,
that's great.
But
that's great.
It's not.
It's
rare. That's true, but it's not really a contentious issue. We all know this. We don't need to have it shown. Yeah. It's different in one. But
it's just
let's
in case
just
a
hope.
newbie comes in and he doesn't know what Spider-Man is. Who knows?
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, but let's just hope that the same level of scrutiny and attention to detail will be made when ridiculous leftist takes will be made.
all right, let's go.
Struggle in the current cartoon. The 1973 Turkish
Oh my
ripoff,
God.
Three Mighty Men, portrays Spider-Man as a violent gangster, so I guess he's having trouble finding a normal job there too. And then there's the Spider-Man movies, which we'll get to in a little bit. First, let's take a look back at the original Spider-Man comics to see where this plot thread comes from. Peter Parker lives with his aunt and uncle in Queens, New York. They're very invested in Peter's education, buying him science equipment to support his studies, but when Uncle Ben is killed, Aunt May is immediately struggling to pay rent. She starts selling her jewelry to make ends meet. So Peter starts looking for work, any work he can get. He ultimately works as a photographer for a newspaper, the Daily Bugle, selling photos of himself as Spider-Man to pay the bills and keep
I have
away
a déjà vu.
landlords who enjoy threatening elderly widows with homelessness. When Uncle Ben dies, it puts Aunt May and Peter at a significant disadvantage because Peter's a high school student and Aunt May is a woman, and not a young one either. It's set in 1962, and we're to assume that Aunt May has just been a housewife taking care of Ben and Peter for the past decade or so, and she doesn't have a career or any work experience to fall back on. She immediately starts pawning her jewelry.
Yeah, neither did my grandma. It's because women tend to outlive their husbands. That's generally the case because the life expectancy, even if Uncle Ben didn't die by an accident or an illness, had a natural life, he is likely to die earlier than Aunt May. I don't know how you do it in the US, but here we got a widow's rent. Like if that is if you're an old couple, your husband dies, the widow gets a portion of what her husband made and what her husband got as a pension added to her own. That usually is enough to pay the rent and then buy food and stuff. Sounds like that isn't the case in the US. I don't know. Or maybe it's just for sake of the story, whatever the case.
I think I don't know.
Well, they're trying to make it for the sake of the
From what I
story
hear,
because
it's different in different
they
states.
they
yes.
want to give Peter as much conflict as possible. He has to do all these things. He's burdened by all this guilt, and just attack him at every economic problems, social problems, physical problems.
There's the age gap too.
All kinds of
He can't really.
Yeah, he's got to do all this stuff within a day just to survive, which is nuts. Plus, he's getting attacked physically, violently by supervillains. So everything with Peter Parker is conflict. Every single scene is, oh my God, I'm bullies at school. Oh my God, can't pay the rent. So that's fine. I don't
double
need
identity.
it. Yeah, I don't need it to be historically perfect. It's fine. It's totally cool.
Her jewelry, so she and Ben didn't have any savings. To make things worse, Aunt May is often in poor health, which we know how that goes down in America. But in the newest Spider-Man films, May is young, she's healthy, and a woman of the 21st century. It's a major change from Spider-Man tradition.
She's still the same age. She just looks young.
What?
How old is she anyway?
She's still 70?
That's a 70-year-old woman, really?
Well, she's what? Pushing
You know how that goes down in
mid-50s,
America.
I think.
But in the newest Spider-Man
Never.
films, May is
That's a 50-year-old woman? Wow.
is
In
young,
what?
she's healthy.
How?
And a woman
That's,
Is she drinking baby blood to stay young?
That's amazing.
Yes.
Maybe she's
Well, let me look it up real quick.
maybe she's going to sleep in parabolic oxygen 100% chambers, just every night for 5 hours or something. Pure oxygen.
And while sitting in an organ chamber.
Well, she's looking great for 50. Holy shit.
Yeah,
right.
She's 56 as of now.
Wow.
This here. This image that we see right here. At 4 minutes 11.
Yeah.
No, I don't buy that.
Well, she's coloring her hair if she's past 40, so.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Of course.
Same with Robert Downey, because he's pushing 50
he's definitely
too.
coloring his hair. Yeah, there's no question about that,
Yeah.
including his beard.
Yeah.
Are you actually talking about the actress?
Well, in makeup, obviously, everything's makeup. Everything's colored. Everything's done with blush and highlights.
Mhm.
So
Am I just missing the sarcasm here?
if she's in fact older than 40, that is hair color, no question.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, but this woman is not 57. What the fuck?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and yeah, she's not like an 80-year-old woman, right? So I kind of get that, but she's not like young. Like everybody thought it was like a 30-year-old. No.
Well,
Okay. I'll do something mean. She's 30 coded.
oh my god.
Oh no.
Wisp, this is going to be one of those videos that aren't that crazy, but we don't need to add more crazy to it.
No.
Oh,
We don't want to go back there.
honestly, no one who watched the movie was buying that this was an old woman. Come on.
She's a
I know. That was a lot of
gorgeous
complaints. Yeah.
for 50 anything. I don't care.
Nobody buys that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I love to be heard.
And that's when you make big changes like that, you better have a good reason, and it's better for more than just one laugh.
Well, that's why she's poor. She's paying it all on plastic surgery. There we go. So.
All right. And Peter has to slave away to pay for his aunt's plastic surgery.
Yeah, like 10,000.
No, they don't actually. Look at the apartment. She gets all that from stripping.
Peter strips.
No. Yes.
Okay, that's a new iteration. I didn't expect Peter Parker to strip.
That was a joke.
Oh.
I was talking about Aunt May. Because people made memes about that one movie she did where she stripped.
Oh, what? There's a movie where she's okay. What movie was this?
I don't know. Let me see if I can find it.
Is it this movie? Because I can see it work. You know, it's pretty obvious it could work that way for her. Oh boy. All right. Okay.
And a woman of the 21st century. It's a major change from Spider-Man tradition, and not just because Aunt May's hot now. Just by being a woman in this day and age, May is inherently at an advantage which 60s Aunt May just wasn't. Back in the 60s, women weren't even allowed to have their own credit cards. In those days,
yeah, and this young-looking Aunt May, she could just open an OnlyFans.
Well, if I recall correctly, to get credit, you need actual credit. I mean, to get a credit card, let alone credit, you need to show past experience of credit or income. And it didn't really matter who you were back in the day. The bank just wants to make money. So if you're a man or a woman, they don't care. The difference is most men had the jobs back then. So they're the ones who had to sign up for the credit card or prove they're married to a woman. But that's what you would do anyway. If you would like have an account that's co-owned by your wife or whoever, you would go together to sign up for that. The same way you'd sign up for a credit card if you're sharing it. So I can't just walk into a bank, say I'm married, say I don't have a job, I have no form of income, and expect to get a credit card. That doesn't make any sense. Like, the bank is one of those places where they don't care about where you come from. It's like, can you give us money in 3 months' time? If so, we can give you a line of credit. Or what is your collateral? What can you, if you have a house, we will, are you putting your house up for collateral? Then no problem. We'll give you a line of credit. It depends what assets you have, really. So I don't know the exact laws. I don't think there were any laws against banking back in the day, in the 60s. But women didn't have as many jobs or were home workers or homeowners. So kind of needed the guy with the job to prove he had the job. And then they'd give you a line of credit. So anyway.
and Peter's finances, their struggle to make ends meet, and it was part of Spider-Man's initial popularity. In fact, the very first ever fan mail published in Spider-Man cites his financial state as part of what makes him so relatable. From 2002 to 2007, director Sam Raimi brought us the Spider-Man trilogy, in which class is a prominent theme. Uncle Ben has recently been laid off and is having trouble.
I'm not sure how class is a theme in these movies.
When we watch Uncle Ben struggle and say, oh, what am I going to do, yada, yada, it's not thinking, oh, he's the working class or what. It's like, I have no idea. I don't know what group
Socialists always see class, always.
It's just Uncle Ben.
It's a lens they're unable to take off.
If you walk around New York, some of it's rather glitzy and some of it's rather poor, depending on which borough you go through, which street you go through. And you don't go, oh, this place is more rich than the other one. It's like, well, maybe. I have no idea. I don't know. You know how crazy house prices are right now in both New York and Canada, or Canada as well as the States? It's kind of nuts right now. So whoever owns a house near downtown, multiple $1 million mortgage, at least. Or they are millionaires, they could pay it off instantly. So nowadays, I hear weird reports of people buying houses or renting houses for like $800 a month Canadian, which is crazy low compared to the average, which is around 2,000. So I don't know. It's really different, and I can't look at Uncle Ben the actor or whatever and go, yeah, this is totally working class poor man. I don't know that until I get more details. And even if I learn the details, I don't go, oh, he's a poor guy. I just we learn that through watching the movie. I don't start categorizing him into a little box of.
He could also be
fine.
He could also be close to retirement age, to be honest.
Yeah, this could be like, oh, time to retire because I'm done. I'm 60, whatever, and that's that.
Well, it seemed like they were fine until he died, and then Aunt May had she eventually loses the house in the second movie,
right?
Because she can't make the bills.
Well, they're still paying off their mortgage.
That's all the information we have.
Yeah,
and exactly. I still don't understand how it's about class.
Yeah, everyone and around this age and time is at the point of paying off the mortgage. They're getting there, unless they're living check to check. I have no idea, but if they bought a house, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they've been paying it off ever since. At an average job, not a high-paying job, obviously.
And just that you have an old couple that has, after one dies, has trouble paying the bills, doesn't make it a class issue. Doesn't make the movie a class thing or whatever.
I would.
You're just over interpreting something of everyday life.
Yeah, I would say the guy who buys and sells stuff person that I am would be, this is an interest rate issue because maybe the interest rates were really high back then and they can't afford the current rate if they don't have a fixed rate mortgage. Like all these other factors pop into play when you talk about money. So it's like, why do you only see his job that defines him? Why don't you see the actual economic problems or struggles they're going through? So
yeah, and then I've met in real life conversations, there's the socialists that define working class by the type of job that you do.
Oh, like blue collar?
And then there's the socialists who define working class by how much income you make.
Okay, so let's say
and that's two completely different things.
Yeah, so if you're part of a union but you make $100K a year, are you still lower class?
You mean like most union leaders?
Well, we have lots of big unions in Toronto, for example. If you're on the TTC, which is our metro, they get over.
No, that's an honest jab because the unions tend to be the animal farm pigs that are more equal than the other animals.
Well, that's the argument I'm also making because they get overpaid for doing crummy jobs, and they've been feeling it. I think most metros across the world have been feeling it the past year because no one's riding it because we're not allowed to go out and do stuff. So there's been cutbacks for sure, but it's just like, yeah, these people are overpaid, period. And they keep hiking pay rates, or they keep hiking the token rate. if I want to take a ride. So it's been doing that every year for like 15 years. It's ridiculous. And that's just in Toronto. So I don't know. It's unions are special that way.
Oh, and what I know from unions in Germany, as far as I had contact with them, the union leaders barely, if at all, do the actual job they're employed for. They just do the union stuff.
Yeah.
And they're extremely corrupt. They're lazy, fat, and corrupt. Was for an event where we were supposed to organize a demonstration together with the unions. Was in the local union house, and they can afford to build their own buildings. And all these union leaders there were the fattest men I have ever seen. Fat, apathetic, lazy, barely able to form a coherent thought and articulate it. It was surreal.
Well, I only have one little story, but I had to join a union. I was working at Bell. If you guys know what Bell is, it's one of Canada's largest telecom companies, but they bought entertainment, like TV stations and what have you. And I was just doing software dev, but I had to join a union to get hired. And it was only a contract job, but I still had to do that. And I got all these brochures and pamphlets, and I got a water bottle on my desk right here. Local 723munifor.org. It's like, what is this? Why do I have a boss and another boss? Like, what's going on? So, entertainment, very competitive industry, just because those have unions. So they decided to unionize the tech sector of the company. So, yeah, crazy times. But I would not consider myself lower class having a tech job at the time. Anyway.
Having trouble
Unless
finding a
you're
world
a different
where
color.
technology is changing rapidly.
The corporation is downsizing the people and upsizing their profits.
When Ben dies, Peter is unable to get work, unable to pay his rent, and Aunt May gets evicted because she can't pay the mortgage. Mary Jane, Peter's love interest, also struggles, and while their friend Harry and his dad, the Green Goblin, are well off, MJ faces classism from them.
You think a woman like that
What?
sniffing around because she likes your personality? What are you saying?
Your mother was beautiful too. They're all beautiful until they're snarling after your trust fund like a pack of ravening wolves.
The Green Goblin is Peter's arch nemesis.
What?
What about that is classism?
He's just taking a jab at women because his personal experience was negative.
Yes.
And he's got the Goblin serum going crazy on him.
That's
Like,
another good point. Yeah.
this is right after he finds out Peter is Spider-Man. He's like freaking out now.
So a rich guy trying to defend his wealth and souped up on some drugs talks about women are bad, therefore it's class. What?
Classism.
I mean, you could interpret it that way, but that's a really bad take.
Well, and Peter doesn't struggle. Like, well, I mean, he does, but even Norman offered a job. I think he was offering an intern over at his company, and Peter refused because he wants to find himself. He doesn't want help. He wants to find a job on his own 2 feet.
Right. So this is the story of a hero as they go about their journey. This is pretty typical stuff. So if he didn't get a job or he didn't struggle and find a job, there'd be a huge dip in the draw because he'd just be constantly failing. So, which would be weird because anyone can get a low-paying job doing just about anything if you were that desperate. And that's just life. You could do deliveries. You could work in the food industry. You could do all sorts of things. So there's always a skill to learn. But I think he was delivering pizza, wasn't he? He was also taking pictures.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was delivering pizza in the second movie.
Yeah,
and he lost a job because he can't manage his time between Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was late.
Job.
He was late delivering the pizza or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, he was even in university too.
Yeah. So, busy guy. There you go. The story of Peter Parker. Always doesn't have enough time to help people, have a love life, take care of his family, keep a job, and go to school. It's clearly classism, guys. Yeah, okay, sure.
No, it's just life.
That's pretty much every person working in university. They're working.
So not leftists.
Well, just the average person who saved up or didn't save up money and has to do everything all at once.
And doesn't have parents paying for it.
Exactly.
His arch nemesis. The contrast between their classes is ever present and glaringly obvious. In Spider-Man 3, the Sandman is motivated by the need to save his daughter because the American healthcare system is like the Hunger Games. In this trilogy, Peter has to balance...
Oh, God.
Wait, what? Hold on.
What is the Hunger Games healthcare system? Does anyone know?
Doesn't people sacrifice themselves in a deathmatch battle royale so that one person can get the healthcare for free?
Really? That's it?
Okay.
That's the American healthcare system, ladies and gentlemen.
Is this a joke?
And it's just kids, remember. It's just kids that are doing the Hunger Games.
Right. But this is just a joke for the ha-has, not for, some...
Yes, this is not meant in earnest because it makes no sense.
Yeah, okay, good. Because I'm like...
Yeah, but I can't distinguish what is a joke and what is a point. That's a he, right? I don't even know why I care.
Yeah. Hey, I still don't understand why the Americans don't copy the horrible German healthcare system. That seems to do pretty well.
Oh God!
And it's fully market oriented.
Oh God!
Even the free stuff, the free part of it is market oriented. So shouldn't Americans love that shit? Like we have 400 health insurances competing with each other.
That won't jack up prices.
And that's just the public health insurances. We also have a bunch of private health insurances on top of that. That you can say give you premium health coverage, but they also sell you more snake oil. It's great. You get extra operations that you don't need because the private health insurance pays for them.
Yeah, it's the same with the public, not insurance, but what's the education? Like you can get, you can go to university. It'll just cost you crazy amount of money because we've adopted the American way of without the actual not bursaries, but the what's the term where you were given grants to go to college. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's hell of expensive.
But the stipend?
It's like a stipend.
Stipendium?
There's all these things you could sign up for to get money to go to college for. If you're part of like Native American tribe or your parents were immigrated in 1956 or all kinds of silly reasons. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Relationships, superheroism, and the stress of poverty. He's weighing the responsibility of taking care of his community with taking care of himself, and taking care of his community is winning. It's only when he allows someone else to help him, to save him, that he's finally able to properly give to the community without sacrificing a part of himself. There's also a theme throughout the films of solidarity in the community. When Peter is fighting the...
Solidarity in the... Okay, fine.
Oh, God.
Remind me what solidarity is.
Working together for the same cause. Solidarity is essentially the left word for fascism. It's okay when we do it. It's similar to the stereotyping is bad, but we still want to do it, so we call it coding when we do it. So every time lefties call for solidarity for this person, this cause, or that cause, then that means you have to be part of the movement or you are an evil outsider who's not joining the cult. Because you have to be, because why wouldn't you? You only wouldn't if you're evil. And this is part of the whole cult trick of mentality of the far left. What solidarity means in a nice interpretation is basically just civic courage. Like there's some asshole, and everybody who's around, random people who are around, come together and help whoever is being being beaten up or is having a had a big accident or something, out of their own volition. But that I wouldn't call solidarity. The left, however, co-opts that civic courage thing.
Yeah, it's
or
kind of
just
like
the idea of just people being good people.
right. It's like the opposite of the bystander effect, where no one does anything when something horrible happens. It's like people see something that they need to react to, and everyone comes together to, I don't know, help someone come up from under a bus or something, or like there's something like that. Everyone immediately knows what to do. They all ask for help, and they all collaborate.
Sure.
And when the left calls for solidarity, it is indistinguishable from corpse guys in a military or in the police. You have to be part of the mob now.
Yeah,
That's
let's go out and protest because I don't know, something happened and
BLM.
Yeah, and you have to as well, or you are now in the out group.
You're a bad person. Yeah, exactly.
That's why I call that. That's why I call that. And it took me a large part of my life to realize this. And there's lots of people who, of course, don't agree with me, especially the left. That solidarity is just code for fascism is okay if we do it. Because that's what that is. It's all working together to achieve a goal, and you have to be part of it, or you're in the out group and have to be condemned for it. That's exactly the idea.
Obey and serve.
Yes. Submit.
All right.
The Green Goblin, civilians turn up to help him out. When he's unmasked fighting Dr. Octopus, civilians promise to keep his secret and give him back his mask. When I was a cynical kid,
So if you guys don't remember that very famous scene on the train, Peter Parker's slowing down the train, and he's pulling with all his might on his webbing, and I think they're holding on to him, or they're keeping him from.
Yes, they grab him from falling down because he gets knocked out because he's so tired from pulling that train to stop, and then they carry him above their heads like he's Jesus or something.
Right. So they're doing this for their own help as well. It's not just to help one person; it's to help everyone on the train. So you could call that an act of solidarity. It's just everyone trying not to die, and they see what Spider-Man's doing, and they're like, "Okay, that's working. The least we can do is hold on to him and protect him." It's not like they're trying.
I mean, yeah, they do try to, like, because Doc Ock shows up and they're all trying to defend him, and then Doc Ock just like pushes everyone out the way.
Right.
It's just really funny, but
so I
just wonder because
I really don't like the term solidarity.
Because he said it's a theme. But I thought he said the theme was about class. Can you have more than one theme?
Of course, yeah. But when you're talking about this concept of group behavior, like dynamic group behavior, it's like, okay, this could happen as a result of tragedy, of an alert, like someone says there's someone in this area. Like I don't know if you guys get broadcasts. We get provincial as well as federal broadcasts on our phones of like missing persons or weather reports. So it's like,
they call it like a Amber Alert.
Yeah, exactly. So these things are kind of like, okay, did you guys know that there's someone in our area we got to watch out for, or there's a missing girl and they were last reported? Like that's, okay, yeah, I'll keep in mind. Like that sort of attitude. It's not life-threatening. It's just sort of, okay, it's immediate. That is as close as we get that I could think of. Unless there's like something in your neighborhood where there's a fight going on or explosion and you got to rush out and see what happened, like a fire. So
that's when the village comes together for that one immediate thing, and after the thing is dealt with, they all go back to their individual lives. And the left fails to get to this point where they see people as individuals again after the group action. For them, the groups never cease to exist.
All right, here is a liter of salad, medium Coke. I don't know I don't know how that measurement works, but thank you, sir. Let me guess. This video thesis is Spider-Man is a socialist communist, right? I agree. My favorite Uncle Ben quote is, with great power comes great Holdemore and Catyin deniability. Catyin deniability. Catyn deniability? Katyn. I'm sorry. What is that?
Do you oppress cats? I don't know.
Katyn deniability. I have no idea.
Deniability.
I was thinking like Katniss from the Hunger Games because he mentioned that a minute ago, but
I was thinking Black Cat.
maybe that's an actual thing. I don't know. I know the whole Demore thing, but
Individual responsibility is not something they want. That's only something for the outgroup.
okay. Well, I don't know if this is a socialist reaction. It's definitely a socialist lens, though. It's a little bit different, but
Yeah. Well, what I said is also not 100% accurate, but I'm tired. I failed to articulate right in every detail. And Glib is here, and this mic's still off.
that's okay. Glib can figure it out.
Glib?
He's getting there. Don't worry. Leave Glib alone. He has his own technical issues to deal with. That's okay. Everyone's got them. It's okay. Here's Alex Halo. Hey, Alex. They only seen his face for a short time. They don't know who that face belongs to. Don't know his name. Would be like the time Lex unmasked the Flash. Yeah, it was a really great scene because everyone's just like, "Oh, you are the guy who just saved our lives. We're gonna respect your anonymity."
Yeah. He's just a kid, even though he looks like a full-grown adult.
Well, yeah, he's a big buff kid. Yeah, because all that spider venom just transformed his body into muscle man. So yeah, no, it was a great scene. Kind of unbelievable because you got these webbing just tearing off the windows of the buildings he's coming across, and still managed to slow down the train. But cool, great scene.
I keep thinking like the ground level, like people would have been crushed by that.
Well, yeah, because I don't know exactly how the metro system works in New York, but it's very elaborate. And yes, the trains are above ground, so they're on their own little railway. So it's like, okay, that's an interesting design, and it works. It works for that visual of showing Spider-Man at the front of the train trying to slow it down. And very great, wonderful, memorable. I remember that shot out of all the rest of the Spider-Man films just because it was so well done. But very unbelievable. So that's fine. It's comic books. That'd be a big deal.
You want realism? What are you, like a Snyder bot?
Yes. No, not really. No, I don't care for realism in the cartoon comics and on the screen. Anyway, here's JS. Thanks, JS. Next up, how the accordion version of Funicula in Spider-Man 2 is proof that Peter Parker is actually Italian coded. I'm going to hate this, aren't I?
Pizza.
Is this what it's going to be? Someone's going to make a joke and it's like, I'm midget coded. I'm French coded. It's like, come on. Guys.
Oh, he's fucking Italian coded. What? He made it out of salami? What kind of programming language is this? Pasta?
Oh, God, yes.
Hey, give me the source code right there. Come on.
The sauce code, yeah.
I'm fucking programming here.
San Marzano, yeah, fantastic. Okay, hey, Glib.
It's something that you're coded with. You're born with this shit.
Okay. Hi, Glib. How you doing?
Since when?
What part of the boot are you from, hun? Oh, you're part of C#? I was born in Holy See, baby. Come on, that's a deep cut right there. Anybody who understands Terry Davis knows that's a good joke. Holy See, Italy, the Papal State. Get it? See, I'm just a brilliant super genius. I'm too far advanced. This is why we need to promote socialism in our culture so that people will be forced to laugh at my jokes or they'll be gulagged. Do you understand that? Do you understand that, chat? Specifically you in chat? Yeah, I know everything about you because I work for the NKVD. Okay?
Sadly, I don't have a link to learning how to do C# or .NET or any sort of money-making scheme for this video. Now link to my Patreon. No, I'm not going to do that. So, oh boy. Anyway, yeah, the video.
It's pizza time.
I was getting to that, but this video is kind of weak sauce when you think about it. I watched half of it, and it's just pretty lame, and talking about solidarity multiple times.
This meme is weak sauce. Yeah, what do you call this? This ain't sauce. This is ketchup over here.
This is spaghetti code.
What do you call this fucking spaghetti?
It's tomato coated.
This is fucking rice noodles. You trying to make spaghetti with fucking Chinese food? What's the matter with you?
Is that what black Italians sound like?
Only in New York.
It's not good fig udon.
Why did you say Italian twice?
That is such a horrible joke from months ago, and I can't believe we're still being chided after.
I can't even remember the guy who said that.
Yeah, who said that? I can't remember either. Who made the joke?
There's
said it,
in the whole quote unquote anonymous alt-right internet thing. There's always this question of who's white and who's black and who's this and who's that, because they're obsessed about categorization. And it's funny whenever people are making connections that aren't really, like, they're just correlations. You know what I mean? So like people going, are Argentinian people white? That's a huge meme there. Yeah, absolutely. And are Italians white? It's all like, oh, why do Southern Italian people look like this? And what about the Moors in Spain? And like, it's all this like weird racial talk. Like the joke is that in America, if you're 1% black at all, then you're black. You know what I mean? Like you have that heritage. But then on the other side, you can never be white enough. So it's like one group is extremely exclusive and the other group is extremely inclusive. But the thing is that there's a camaraderie that exists with all the people who think that they're white, and there's not a camaraderie with people that are in the inclusive thing. So I always think it's really interesting how no matter how you create a network or a measurement of certain groups of people, the more inclusive a group is, the less intimate it is. And the more exclusive and intimate it is, the less popular it's going to be. And so there's this weird sort of like in-group, there's inherently like a destructive thing to any group that tries to exclude or include people without it being natural. You know what I mean? And all these things fall apart anyway. But I just find it amazing how people are like, you're not white enough, or how black are you? Or am I black enough for you? Like there's a whole Billy Paul song that he led with as the single to his second album where it's like, am I black enough for you? Because he was like pissed off that the culture wasn't allowing people to just be themselves. And that was after Me and Mrs. Jones, which is probably why his career tanked. But I have so much respect for that. Anyway, I'm just jabbering on. But the point is that it's really funny how people with exclusive in-group preferences usually have an issue gaining traction, and the people that have the inclusive group preferences usually don't have a camaraderie that is coherent within their group. Like if you watch the DSA, have you guys watched any of those things? That'd be a really funny Smudcast. Just watch clips from the Democratic Socialists of America, the meetings that they have.
Oh, yes.
It's a train wreck. Yeah. That's inclusivity. A bunch of different people that just are weirdos that are disparate versus a bunch of people that are all trying to be the same person.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah, the group cohesion is completely superficial.
The group cohesion is based on the virtues that they signal, not based on principles.
Well,
it's like, I know it sounds weird, but like a principle isn't the same thing as a virtue in a way.
Yes, I've seen this live for over a decade, right in front of me. And it's completely baffling when you're just trying to figure out how human interaction even works among normal people after coming out of a dysfunctional family. While autistic is not a good environment in the wilds to figure that out, because that is just another dysfunctional environment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would assume that being autistic is a dysfunctional environment within your own mind. So I assume that.
Well, it's just incompatible with non-autistic people.
This is why we need autistic camps where we can concentrate people. No, I don't know. I have no idea what to do about that.
Well,
No,
I don't know anything
there,
about.
you need to,
I don't know
make
anything about
distinctions between the types of autists because they don't work with each other.
Right. No, I think that there's an entire can of worms that we could open up about what causes people to be. Is it physical? Is it biological? Or is it socialization? Is it genes? What is it that makes people fork into a certain path? And what I've noticed is that regardless of prevalence or precedence or whatever that come from external sources, there is like a degree of choice where people are choosing to go into certain groups because those groups represent something that they're trying to escape to, and the other group, the out group, is the one that they're trying to escape from. So I've seen people try and do that, and a lot of people that are individualists, they don't try to escape to a group, they try to escape to a fictional idea of something that you can share with other people, but it's not necessarily theirs, which is why there's so many fandoms, I think, because everybody has their own version of what the fandom is, but then everybody agrees that there is this core thing, which is why I think all religions have books. Canon. People are searching for some sort of canon to live their life by, and then they want a group of people that surround that canon.
You did bring up the idea of categorization that these people do, and I think it's a perfectly normal, healthy, logical process to categorize things. If you actually do read the Categoria from Aristotle, which I don't recommend, it's very complicated and probably a lot of bullshit in there as well, but it's one of the first steps to learning, to understanding something, to put something in a box and to wrap your head around it. The problem is anyone can do it, and they could make any box, and they could label that box anything. And then you have all these people invent terms, and they have well-established words that they reinvent, and they make them sound and congeal better with their own ideas. And then you have people agreeing on these words, and we listen to these people like, what was it? The other day it was coded. That was the word. So everything is this coded or that coded, and we're sitting there going, that is ridiculous. It's either a child or it's not a child. It's either a man or it's not a man. So they put these ideas.
It's just stereotyping.
It's unnecessary forms of categorization that mean almost nothing.
Well, the problem is that, okay, if the preliminary psychedelia that I've experienced has been this sort of infinite, fractal Mandelbrot scheme of things where when you're thinking about classical physics or you're thinking about biology or thinking about any of these sciences, they're all based on us digging our way out of the hole of not knowing something. So it's like we started with ourselves and we worked our way outwards. Now you can look as infinitesimally small as possible and you're still going to find new things. You can try and look into larger and larger objects and you're always going to have like something that's bigger than something else, because it's all ultimately relative to the perception that you're experiencing. So what I've noticed is that people that are trying to categorize things, they can categorize things, and then there's always somebody in the back that's like, yeah, but what about that? Where do platypuses fit in this scheme? And you're like, fuck the platypuses. But the platypuses exist. There's always going to be an outlier that has to create a new category around that, and then another category, and then another category, and another category. So like the problem that I saw with
all that fuzzy borders, that's just the thing. It's
perception based. So like once you're there's layers of it. Like there's a great comic by XKCD where he's saying that chemistry, biology is just applied chemistry, and chemistry is just applied physics, and physics is just applied math. And it's like there's different rungs of reality that you're looking at. I would say dimensions, but they're not really dimensions. So like all these different layers.
When you look from the microscopic to the macroscopic, you will find you will find patterns between these layers that are the same if you reduce it enough to their core mechanics, and then find parallels between topics that are not obviously similar but act similar, and but you will only be able to do that properly when your pattern recognition is honed and works as it should, is healthy, and not when it's schizoid, like it seems to be the case with many of the socialists that we cover here. And on the other issue, in the end, we are herd animals, and even the even the most introverted will eventually need a bit of social interaction and social leaning on after a much longer time than especially compared to an extrovert. But in the end, we all seek a tribe of any kind of sort, and most people, I would say, do this naturally, and the natural fandoms, if you want to call them like that, they naturally grow around the basic rules, around the canon that you mentioned. The parallel to what you described with the DSA, was it in America?
Yeah.
Is the artificial fandoms that the socialists claim to have about all these franchises that they're destroying, and then first claim to don't gatekeep, let us in, and once they're in, they gatekeep the original fans out.
See that? You know what that reminds me of? Is that reminds me of the biblical story of Lot, and the angels come down and they're talking to Lot and talking about how Sodom and Gomorrah sucks and stuff. And then all the people are like, "Let us in! We want to fuck these angels, these male-looking angels." And then Lot's like, "Please don't. Please, I'll give you my daughters. Just don't fuck these angels. They're God's people." And like, that's what the SJWs are to me. Is they're the people of Sodom and Gomorrah that are in trying to fuck the angels, and the angels are just our franchises that represent something. I mean, I know you shouldn't be creating graven idols. I'm not saying Luke Skywalker is my god. He's just a representation of a man. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like, it's just so funny to me that like they're like, "Hey, let us in so that we can fuck it up." It's like this person is wearing a Spider-Man outfit and they're like, "Yeah, here's why Spider-Man sucks." It's like somebody's wearing your grandma's clothing and they're like, "Your grandma was a whore," and then they're just like posing. They're just like, "Look, like, I'm an enlightened woman. Your grandma was a whore," and it's just like a really muscular. It's philosophy tube in your grandma's wedding dress.
Oh, God.
Look, I'm a philosopher, and Spider-Man is gay, and also trans and masculine, and a problem.
It's like an autoimmune disease. It tricks your immune system into letting it in and then attacking itself.
So you're saying that they're HIV. You're saying that social justice warriors are a virus that causes an autoimmune disorder within communities.
Yes, because they've always said, they're like cancer. But there are parallels to that if you know how cancer actually works. But generally, I think for general understanding, HIV is much more easily comprehensible metaphor for the cancer metaphor comparison.
Because it spreads.
Yes. But for the cancer thing, that is cancer is a bit more complicated than people think. Like, it's not just a lump of irrationally acting cells that gobble up resources and multiply without reason. Cancers, when they grow enough, have specialized cells, and they even send out imagine little activists that tell the immune cells, that tell the T cells, hey, cop who comes by here, there's nothing to see here. Everything's fine here. There's nothing to be worried about.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that social justice warriors are a virus, and the T cells and white blood cells that represent the police, they want to defund the T cells. That's what you're saying. And they want to change. Yeah, they want to change healthy cells into cancerous cells that will never. That if they do not reproduce the original cells, they only reproduce the cancer cells by changing them.
Yeah, and they're the only way that
Wait a minute. So wait. Are we saying that the
mix of HIV
concept,
and cancer?
Are we saying that nations are like bodies, and the body national actually is a viable thing? That we're some sort of macro cultural structure? Are you saying that Hitler was right? Jesus Christ!
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right,
Yes.
so
osmosis. So what we need is an Osmosis Jones remake, but there's like a Hitler.
Well, there's another.
Hitler is the DNA.
You can make another. You can make another parallel. You know how you get a cancer visible to the immune system again? There's two basic ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I know
you shake up the body by making the environment unstable.
Right.
That means increase temperature like mad, or reduce nutrition, fasting, real fasting, where you don't eat anything for at least 3 days up to a week. And your natural cells in your body will go into a protective state where they close down their borders and don't let in less toxins, go into lower metabolism, so they use up less. And the cancer cells, because they need to eat all the time to reproduce more, they will go in a panic state, open up their floodgates, and get everything in that they can, which is amazing for chemotherapy, because all the healthy cells are affected less by the chemotherapy, which is basically poisoning yourself. And the cancer cells will gobble up the chemotherapy even more.
Well, the thing is that chemotherapy is one thing, but what's even cooler is that if you take, there are certain substances that have been proven in vitro to stop cellular replication of viruses, period. Thus, the response that you would want is you'd want the body to be assisted with supplemental compounds, I guess you could say, that would enable the immune system to fight off the virus as normal, because the thing is no longer reproducing, which is one of the things that they were talking about with zinc. I've been doing a lot of research into zinc sulfates, into ivermectin, how the antiviral mechanisms work there. There's all sorts of interesting things, like the way that diatomaceous earth works on the digestive system is to tear apart the foreign substances while it's going through your system, which doesn't actually affect your own system. So really there's this interesting, like, the body's hiring mercenaries essentially to do a job. They're hiring private security teams to go and hunter-killer style take down these invasion forces. It's really funny because
large parts of your digestion, your intestines work like that. That flora in there is not native.
Just like and that there's research into how alkaline environments in the body instead of acidic environments can change the ability for certain microorganisms to even grow in the first place. Like how copper can be used as an antibacterial, like in rooms. If you have copper, it's harder for microorganisms to stick to that surface, or like shark skin. There's like literal physical things. I know we're going off topic, but the point is that it's very funny how art, you can make a lot of food metaphors, and how with politics you can make a lot of body metaphors. And I don't know why that is. But what I think it is it references this idea that our knowledge and our speech are symbolic representations of understanding. Like us trying to communicate an idea, it's not totally efficient to do it through straight language. Sometimes it's more efficient to do it through art, through metaphor, through relation. And no matter what we do, we're going to be forced to have relative speech and interpretation be centered at our understanding of each other, which is why the orthodoxy of language and the orthodoxy of art matter, because to understand each other and to communicate as pure information as possible without misinterpretation requires objectivity. That's the reason why the subjectivity shit is so fucked up. It's like a divide and conquer thing. If we don't have a common understanding of something, even if that thing is evolving always and is always incomplete, then we won't be able to communicate very well.
And this is the reason why Jung came up with descriptions like the ideological demon, in order to describe that essentially living idea that manifests in people in parts. And on the nation body nation thing, that's the communists. I always forget who it was. The guy was obsessed with ants. And that is the reason, one of the many reasons why the communists get how society works completely wrong, because they look at the perfect society as an anthill, and all the humans are the individual ants. They forget that ants have an actual class system, and they forget that, or don't understand that the individual ant really doesn't matter much. The individual ant is not representative of a human, but the colony is representative of a human. For the colony itself, the ants of the colony are more representative of the cells in the human body, and not the colony as the state. That is what the communists get completely wrong about this, and which I think is why they misapply everything in that regard, and why they fuck up humanity every time they get in charge, because they want to make a state as an ant colony.
All right, guys, we're just jumping all over the place right now.
Right. Let me just say one last thing about that. It's easier to think of everybody as one group unit thing than to individually think about every individual person's real actual life. It's too complicated, so they have to boil it down to society. Sorry, Smud. There you go.
All right, thank you. Here is.
Yeah, I just had a last.
Oh, really?
I don't think I think I had the epiphany before. I just remembered it. The objectivity versus subjectivity thing is when we try to map the world out in an objective manner, we first off agree there is this one reality that we all look at from individual perspectives. So we try to map out, for example, the famous example of God, or whether it's the geometrical object that from one side looks like a rectangle, from the other looks like a circle. If you look at it from any other angle, you get the 3D image of it, but always you only see one side of it. And we try, by exchanging our perspectives, we all get a more clearer idea of what the object we're looking at from our limited perspective actually looks like, and how it works. What the subjectivists, however, do is they take all these individual perspectives and say each of those perspectives is its own reality. They're not part of the same reality. They're all their own individual realities. And that's where it all falls apart. And why they drive people insane, because you can't exist in that quasi-solipsistic state. And you can't ever find a common ground about reality, because you reject the common ground about reality, which is probably there not just to tear apart anything else but socialism, but also gives the absolutely irrational and proven dysfunctional ideas of socialism room, because it cannot exist in a reality that has reality checks. When you have all these slices and all these single perspectives and say they're all different realities, and in my perspective, in my limited perspective on reality, this thing totally works. And you all other people, you have to accept that it works in my reality, so don't you dare criticize it. And that's the whole salesman's trick. How they keep this dysfunctional stuff alive.
All right. Okay, where were we? Yes, there was one donation by
Spider-Man's coming out.
Yeah. Glibtard Facts and Logic. Thanks for the donation. I can't wait for the white supremacist analysis of Spider-Man 3. Peter dresses all in black, subverts Eddie Brock. The blonde-haired Aryan utilizes the media and answers the phone, dying Shalom. Spider-Man is Jew-coded. Oh, boy. That is...
Spider-Man's pizza-coated! Hey!
Oh... I know that's trying to be funny, but that was just a mishmash of ideas that did not make me smile one bit. So, anyway, we're going to go back to the video, and I completely forgot what he was talking about, or she was talking about. But,
I don't know, something about socialism.
Solidarity.
Solidarity.
Oh, and solidarity. Yeah.
Okay.
It's divide and conquer of the minds.
Okay.
Realistic, and I hated it. But now I see it as representing what we could be, what we should be as a community, working together, supporting one another.
Oh my God! Shut up.
Class solidarity, TBH.
Oh my God!
In 2012, we're going to read
TBH.
Representative. Like totally, like superheroes are just like what we should be. Like, oh my God.
Is this person from the Great of Britain or the California? I don't know.
I think if you take
estrogen
as a man, then your brain starts to fall apart. Like, it fucks with your logic, I think. There's no way that taking these hormones that are not meant for you and overloading them in one direction is not a fucking, like, mind-bending chemical change.
I don't think they affect your Wernicke and Broca's area to interpret language. I don't think that's the case.
Dude, that was broken before.
Every other aspect but that changes, you know what I mean?
No,
like
that part was broken before. what the hormone therapy does is, from male to female, is it does make you more open to your emotions. It does make you a bit more dysregulated, if you want. You can see, well, the one is a positive word, the other is a negative word. That's all. And that's basically all it does. Testosterone and on the other side, testosterone on the one side, yes, it increases aggression somewhat, but more importantly, it also makes you more stoic naturally. And when that is missing, of course, you're a bit more neurotic, because you're missing the stuff that makes you naturally more stoic.
Do you remember As Good as It Gets? Has anybody seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
And that excellent quote where he's like, how do you write women so well? I think of a man, and I take away reason and accountability. And that's what I've seen every person that takes estrogen. That's what happens. They become bonkers. They like, you go from a guy who is like ContraPoints before, where they're like, yeah, I don't really care about having bottom surgery and doing all this stuff. And then there's a stream later where it's like, you know what I really fantasize about is losing my virginity again. Oh my god, yeah, that sounds so hot. Oh my god. Yeah, autogynephilia confirmed. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, autogynephilia is not.
I'm supposed to not be me and this logical person. You hear the tone of my voice every time I talk. That's automatic. I have resting bitch voice. You know what I mean? I'm supposed to not be me and just entertain everybody's insanity, and yet I'm supposed to just be here, the crazy guy. I can't make jokes. You know what I mean? I'm not here to be fucking serious. It's like when people are like, there's a great Norm Macdonald joke where he's like, you know, people keep saying that comedians are supposed to be modern day philosophers, which is an insult to modern day philosophers. Like, I think it's really annoying that you have these YouTube personalities. They see other people that are on YouTube that are successful, that, you know, and they're like, oh, I'm going to be a bread tuber too. And then they do this thing, they put on this affectation, they put on the bisexual lighting, and they come out and they go, how can I extrapolate how this
And they start talking through their nose as if they did too much cocaine.
How can I make this popular thing both awesome and optimistic and racist and sexist and bigoted at the same time? Also, how do I promote trans ideology? It's like, I'm too smart for this shit, or not dumb enough to buy into it. I don't know what it is. But either way, I feel like I'm being pandered to, and at no point can I take it seriously based on actions. Because it's like we're supposed to disconnect people and what they stand for from how they actually act, which is like this.
In this case, the fan is actually well-versed in Spider-Man, so they're making very small statements like class solidarity a few times. And I watched about half of this. It's actually okay. Yes, it gets a little weird, but it's not inherently bad, which is okay, because, again, lore is king. They showed all these clips from Spider-Man where Peter Parker's poor, and you're like, great, fantastic. I mean, we got the first time, but, you know, the 12th time is good too. So this is one of the better videos I would regard a fan talking about a thing, because they're definitely a fan.
I guess given the last video, huh?
Oh, God. No. That was not fun.
Did you catch what he said, by the way? He said I was a cynical kid.
Who?
What?
The YouTuber. Yeah, he said I was a cynical kid. I don't.
Oh, in the comments. Were they chat?
No. He just said it after you played the video.
Who's he?
Who is this YouTuber we're watching?
Oh, this YouTuber specifically. I thought you meant the previous. Smudcast.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know.
This is verilybitchie.
Verilybitchie.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a lot of just fan lore stuff, which is fine, and then it just has a little side with solidarity and capitalism bad. You're like, okay, whatever. Doesn't bother me.
In the form of the Spider-Man films. These don't make as much of an issue of class for the Parker family, though Aunt May is working as a waitress and starting to take nursing classes, and Peter is still selling his photos to the Daily Bugle. Money's tighter since Uncle Ben died. The difference in class between the Parkers and the Stacys is emphasized. The Stacys eat real fancy food and dress for dinner. Who dresses for dinner? What the fuck? George Stacy is a police captain
Is that a joke?
and likes neither Peter nor Spider-Man. The cops decide Spidey is a menace and put out a
I don't
warrant
like
for
that
his
Spider-Man.
arrest. The first film culminates when the police have shot Spidey and he's not able to make it across the city in time to stop the villain.
This movie
So a
sucks.
construction worker organizes with other workers across the city to use cranes to help transport
Fuck
him.
you!
It's
Fuck
not-
you! They can't just get him an ambulance and be like, "Oh, get in my taxi cab. I'll fly you over there." Yeah, no, I want. He's
The
got a swing.
dumbest scene in that movie.
I bet there was a swell of music too, like some dumbass shit where the horns
Yeah,
blared.
there
Hey,
was.
we gotta help her. He's
not
just
even
like us.
that.
He's a New Yorker. He loves pizza. Come on.
class solidarity.
Trying to be like
Peter's
Batman.
financial struggles aren't as prominent as in the Sam Raimi
Dumb.
trilogy, but he's still very much
What
a
was
working
that?
class superhero from a
Dumb.
working class background.
How did he project himself horizontally?
Because he pulled himself and then
He used his
he
weapons.
let go.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I don't know if you guys have seen these cranes. Like, there's lots in Toronto. We're one of the biggest cities in the world with cranes in them, and they just stand there. They're like that overnight. There's no need to move them. You know, they're already in place. So, and if you're moving one in another direction, it's not going to make much of a difference.
What you do with them usually I would expect you to do the same, is that they're not fixed when they're not in use. They can rotate freely, because if you get strong winds, and at their height there's usually winds going, if they would be fixed, they could be blown over. That's
that has
not
happened,
good.
yes.
That's why they can freely rotate.
It's great when there's a counterbalance and you're using, like, if Spider-Man were to swing from one, that would work fine because he's going down, so gravity's pulling the weight down, and that would be totally cool. But, you know, moving that crane or rotating that crane isn't going to, like, the distance is not going to be very noticeable. And if he could swing at that distance anyway, all he needs is height. So whether he attaches himself to a crane or a building, it's the same thing. And there's plenty of already.
Look, it's just cool. Why you question it?
It's just cool. Okay.
Yeah, look at it. Look at the pose he's doing. So cool.
Okay.
It's
I
at
always wanted to
night,
be
so it's like he's
Spider-Man.
Batman.
The one thing I will give The Last of Us Part 2 is they did have that crazy scene of walking across the cranes at the height of the buildings. I thought that was a clever level design, coupled with Abby's fear of heights. I thought that's great. That they're doing something at least interesting on a few levels there. So, you know, every piece of crap has some little diamonds in it, I guess.
Embarrassing.
Years ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Marvel sold the Spider-Man film rights to Sony Pictures. So when Marvel Studios began to build their own
That joke
shared
doesn't
cinematic
work.
universe of superhero movies building up to the Avengers films, Spider-Man wasn't allowed to be part of that world. That is
Oh my
until
God.
Marvel Studios and Sony struck up a deal which would allow Sony to keep the rights to Spider-Man while benefiting from having Spider-Man's new films exist within Marvel's cinematic universe with Iron Man and the Avengers. In the MCU
What's your
films
fucking
Captain America
point?
Civil War and
Here we
Spider-Man
go.
Homecoming, Peter is introduced to the MCU through his relationship to Tony Stark / Iron Man, a billionaire scientist who becomes his mentor. You see, Tony
So
wants to use
dumb.
the teenager to fight Captain America for his own political agenda. Just a cute little bit of exploitation of a...
Oh my God! Shut the fuck up.
Not sure how stopping a fugitive is a political agenda.
If there are people that are going to be super powered, you don't think that Iron Man is going to go around and ask them where they stand on the issue so he knows who to defend himself against?
Especially since he was building this Avengers thing.
What do you think is happening? Like, what is this person think is... They boil down this conversation to, I'm going to use this boy, when everything in the whole thing is he's trying to give him training wheels and protect him from being harmed. It's supposed to be this father-son-ish relationship. I didn't like that shit. I thought that shit was corny and weird. But
It's
I
too
understand what
early,
they're trying to
too.
do.
Yeah.
They could have just had Spider-Man come in fully fleshed out, and I would have been like, yeah, because everybody knows who Spider-Man is. Everybody knows who Spider-Man is. Out of all of the Marvel shit, we've had the most Spider-Man movies. So how do they think that audiences don't know who Spider-Man is? But we have to go through the same fucking thing over and over again, but this time with Zendaya.
Because we need to
You really
see
want to make Zendaya
his
famous for some
origin.
reason.
We need to
We
see
need to
his
see
origin,
which
though.
Spider-Man it is, in which
Yeah.
way Ben died, and so
Like,
on.
how
and
do
so
I know
on.
it's Peter Parker?
Just watch the Batman movie with a bunch of Tobey Maguire gifs playing, and you get the beginning of Spider-Man. It's the same story. So he lets somebody go, and then that person shoots his uncle, and then, we've seen it a million times, and that's why they abridged it. They were just like, fuck it. And I honestly feel like that's the same annoying thing about Into the Spider-Verse. The least interesting thing is how he gets his powers. The thing that Spider-Man is known for, like like the thing we've done over and over again, is the thing that's fun for other heroes. With Spider-Man, I think they should just pick up and go with that. Like, do a Spider-Man story. But the real problem, I feel like, is that if you look at Spider-Man as a character, there's only so many good narratives that are long enough to abridge into a movie. Like Spider-Man after the Golden Age, after it stopped being the primary, there aren't really that many good Spider-Man stories. And I collected Spider-Man comics. Like the Spider Slayers saga is not that interesting. And that's even Golden Age related. The idea of the Clone Saga is stupid. I can't think of a single really excellent Spider-Man story that wasn't a small narrative. Even when they had a whole thing where they bring back his parents for a little bit, but then you find out they're clones or some shit. It's like it becomes Dragon Ball Z after a certain amount of time because there's 1,000 issues of it or whatever. And there were 4 or 5 Spider-Man comics running at the same time. Spider-Man is so popular that the cool thing about him, and really one of the things I like about him, is he can be put into anybody's comic, and you can put him into anybody's comic, and he'll be entertaining. The only thing you can't do with Spider-Man is take him out of New York, because who gives a fuck about Spider-Man in a non-vertical environment? What's Spider-Man going to do in the plains of Nebraska? Fucking nothing. He's going to shoot web, and then jump. You know what I mean? He's an urban dwelling character, which is why his story was always centered around what's him and MJ doing. She's modeling, and he's, trying to make money as a photographer now that he's at JJJ's Enterprise. Like, the Spider-Man is a character that is both really flexible and restricted. And what's funny is that the only thing that Hollywood can think to do is bring him in as the young guy. They never do middle-aged Spider-Man. And then Into the Spider-Verse hit, and everybody was like, "Wow, this is so great! Where was this the whole time?" It's like, yeah, that's Amazing Spider-Man meeting Ultimate Spider-Man, or whatever the what's his name? What's the dumbass Brian Michael Bendis Spider-Man, the Miles Morales, whatever that issue run is. There's different Spider-Man, and then there's the Ben Reilly Spider-Man, and there's all these different Spider-Men, and they're not interesting compared to the idea of having a guy with the power. And he goes off against regular Marvel villains. His cross appeal is one of the main appeals. So in this movie, Spider-Man should be interacting with all the Avengers, just like in that sense, and going off on little tiny solo adventures where he interferes, because that's how he was introduced to the Fantastic Four and brought into the Marvel Universe. Nowadays, it's the opposite. If you want to introduce a character, you have him show up in a Spider-Man story. When, like, you have Deadpool and Spider-Man working together, or you have... In the 90s, they would always cross him over with other villains that they would try and use in other stories. So I don't think that there's much that you can do with MCU Spider-Man, and I think that it's boring that they brought him back and did all the exact same things that they've done a million times.
Well, they've really regressed him even more and simplified him, which is a big problem I have.
We should just reboot the Hulk origin story
again.
Right. I know he's Ultimate Spider-Man, but there was another Ultimate Spider-Man. And Miles is stupid because what spiders can go invisible and have venom lightning powers or whatever his dumbass has?
But have you ever seen an invisible spider? Because they're always invisible. How are you gonna know?
Those must be the spiders that keep stealing like my car keys or my debit card when I can't find them. It's always the invisible.
Obviously, yeah.
Spiders.
Are you implying invisible spiders are inherent looters?
Yes.
The invisible Spider-Man, and it's just like blank panels of comic books.
SLM, right?
Anyway.
Okay.
Of a 15-year-old. Tony Stark. More like Tony Snow, because he's a bastard.
Smile off. That doesn't work either. You have no sense of humor.
Stark shows up at Peter's apartment
Not
and
even awkward
basically
humor.
offers him an Avengers internship.
Got the whole
Peter's
squad left.
computer and other
What the fuck you doing with my aunt? Fuck off, old man. Who the fuck are you? What the fuck's the matter with you?
equipment has
I got a fucking pizza shirt on.
literally come from dumpster diving at this point. This kid is poor.
A Vitruvian
Not
pizza.
anymore, because in a
I like how he's poor, but the set doesn't look dirty at all. You know what I mean? I always found the set dressing to be lacking in this movie because it looks like they just bought it at IKEA. You know what I mean? That door should have like a lot of stain. It should look like Jared Genesis' door or whatever.
That's because Aunt May was been stripping for money. They can afford this now.
I thought it looked like a standard sitcom.
Exactly. It just everything in the Marvel movies looks like a television show where everything's too perfect. I hate that.
Yeah,
his hair is too perfect.
Yeah, and sitcoms they look artificial because no place looks they don't look lived in. They look propped up like a scene. Like this is what we imagine a living room would look like. Yeah, but there's nothing natural about it.
Why does this dude look like what my brain thinks of when I think of a live action Donkey Kong movie? He'd play Diddy Kong.
It's the ears, isn't it?
To pay this child who has to dumpster dive to use Facebook to fight against a team of military-trained and super-powered adults.
Okay, this is bullshit, by the way. Him not having a computer, but also being like a super genius that can fucking put together shit. But he's got a dumpster dive for an Apple II computer. This is fucking bullshit, dude.
I'm not even sure there's web browsers at the time of an Apple II, but yeah.
Not like him.
In my parallel port into the FireWire.
Yeah, fuck off.
Not like him. I would expect to have a ThinkPad, not an Apple.
By the way, this
because he's not a designer.
This pauses.
Plus, he's watching the Star Wars movies. How's he doing that?
This is how Spider-Man takes a dump.
Also, him having Apple products messes with the idea that he's poor.
Yeah, he's just a poor guy. He's just a poor genius. Poor brilliant genius that has Spider-Man powers. What is he going to do? What could he possibly do?
Here's
buy Apple products.
Well, he's white. I mean, come on.
He could pose as he could do anything. He's fucking Spider-Man. So he could do a lot of shit if he wants to. Come on. He could fucking I don't know, be a high, he could be like a construction worker and be like, "Yeah, I'm not afraid of heights." Cuz what is he afraid of? He's got the spidey senses, you know what I mean? He could do anything.
Well, yeah, and he has increased strength. Like, and construction work pays well.
Yeah, no, he could be a fucking day laborer and make some money and get something better than an Apple II computer. But we forget he's a brilliant smart boy who can come up with fucking web shooters and like knows programming and stuff, but he's on an Apple II or something. Like he's too smart and too strong and too powered to be this pathetic a character. And that's one of my main problems with Spider-Man. I like the way that Toby played it off a little bit because his Peter Parker was nerdy, but Tom Holland, I'm like, this dude he's a short guy. That doesn't make him not confident. I never feel like he's like, oh no, poor Peter. You know what I mean? The plot and the character work against each other. Tom Holland is like trading banter with Tony Stark. He should be fucking coming up with some shit. You know what I mean? Why is he boxed in by the plot?
That's just because they made him too it's oversimplifying Spider-Man. I feel like why should he have any problems?
Yeah, why should he have any problems? He's not unattractive. He's not dumb. His biggest problem is that he's a poor kid in New York City, where like there's a lot of opportunity for poor kids.
It's not even that. He's like, he just wants to be an Avenger. I want to be an Avenger. And at the other movie, he doesn't become Avenger. It's like, what? I don't understand that.
So that I can fucking fight bad guys? Like that's what he wants to do. That's all he wants to do.
Fight bigger bad guys, I guess. I don't know.
The Spider-Man, I imagine, would just do that whether he's part of the club or not.
I think it's really
because it's not being part of the club that allows you to fight bad guys.
Well, he wanted to join the Fantastic Four. They wouldn't let him because they were like, "It's the Fantastic Four, stupid. It's not the Fantastic Five. We'd have to rebrand everything." But the thing is that he wants to be a part of a team because realistically, how is a guy gonna fight crime? How do you, as a superhero, in 2021 fight crime? What? There's just gonna be a random guy like there's just a robbery happening. Do you have a police scanner? How do you know when crime is happening? That's why joining the Avengers makes sense, because it's like, oh, they have guys that they actually have to fight against. There's super villains, and I'm a super powered guy, so it makes sense. But that's another reason why the Avengers initiative and the idea of fleshing out this universe beyond the characters that they've introduced would have been a good idea. Now you just have this guy that's being added into the universe who has never been present up until this point, which doesn't really make any sense. It just, there should be other people that are like, if you want to play it that way, there should be other people that Spider-Man is like. It's like joining the MIB, you know, like Men in Black, and like in the beginning, K is following a bad guy who's an alien, and he finds out it's an alien, and then that's when he gets. I mean, Jay is doing that, and then he gets recruited by K into the MIB after a test. That would be kind of how you would join the Avengers. It's like, oh, it's a bunch of people that are superpowered, competing or whatever to get a slot, and it's like. Iron Man, he would then lose the slot and be all like dejected that he was like, "What? I wasn't good enough," even though he was one of the best. And then Tony would be like, "Listen, I don't want you to join the Avengers. I want you to meet with me." And then you could have him come in with the whole fucking, I want to be your uncle bullshit. You got to take over for me after my contract runs out. You know, there's got to be some kind of uniformity to the idea that the superheroes and supervillains exist. But then how many of them are out there that we don't see? They're just going to be added in, and you're going to be, the more and more people are going to be looking back and be like, where were they during the Avengers? And you're either going to have to pull a Batman versus Superman.
Well, that's what's happening
Batman's
now.
driving a Jeep into the, we got to everybody get out of the building. Superman's coming. Quick, where's my Jeep? Let's go. That's some bullshit, you know? So it's going to be like that. It's going to be like, where was Moon Knight on 9/11? That's what it's all going to be like. Where was
the Internals? Where was
you and the Avengers? Yeah, they were just somewhere else doing something equally as important that we didn't even know about before, and it's going to be some sort of like all workable.
The time was not. The time was not now. We weren't ready. Not yet.
Spider-Man, you're a wizard, Harry. Time to join Starfleet.
Here's Francis Ford Coppola. MCU Spider-Man is barely his own character. He's basically just a stand-in for young audience members. Hey kids, check out this hip young character who makes Vine references and hangs out with your favorite superheroes. Also, the side characters suck.
Oh. Garbage.
Well, which side characters? There were side characters?
Oh yeah, the MCU Spider-Man side characters, like his buddy, the big dude.
The Asian?
Oh, the fat guy.
Zendaya, who's relevant. All the characters around Spider-Man are relevant. I mean, it's cool that they got Jake Gyllenhaal in there. But, like...
Yeah.
I don't think anybody gives a fuck about these Spider-Man movies, really. I think that people just will say, yeah, they're good. I mean, maybe they are, you know? I don't know.
They're fun.
I nothing them. I think they're I think the first one that I saw, Homecoming, was absolutely the dumbest Spider-Man content that we've gotten outside of Amazing Spider-Man, those movies. It was so stupid. The way that he's hamstrung and doesn't know what to do at any point, and is just like, I don't know, I gotta figure this one out. I'm stuck inside of a
I want to be an Avenger, though.
I want to be an Avenger. How do I get out of this building? Like, it's just really annoying. And he didn't make his own shit. Like, the whole point of the thing that was admirable about Peter Parker and the thing that made you want to be him as a teenager was that he was a dude that was a nerd, and you identified as a nerd as a comic book fan, because by merit of reading a comic book, you're a fucking nerd. Sorry to tell you that, but if you read comic books, you're a nerd, and it's okay. It's totally okay.
I constantly, especially these days, I get the feeling that Hollywood gets nerds wrong from the ground up.
They're trying to turn people into shitty nerds. They're trying to turn people into the nerds that you see on Big Bang Theory that are like, hey, I'm a gamer girl. I have the gamer driver chair, and I got the fucking
but that's not
microphone.
Exactly, that's not nerds. That's a cheap copy of nerds.
But that's what Hollywood makes, cheap copies of interesting shit. That's their whole shtick. They make mainstream, expensive versions of other shit that's more interesting. So like, what I'm trying to say with this Spider-Man is that he's a dude that is separate from the concept that is appealing about Spider-Man in the first place. A kid in high school who's a latchkey kid who doesn't have any parents, who is trying. He has a very promising future because he's intelligent, but he lacks the self-esteem. He lacks a spine in a lot of ways. People like him. He's punctual, but then he gets made fun of for being this nerdy character. It's very Archie Andrews, 1950s George McFly shit. And then he gets the Spider-Man powers, and then the powers give him this boost in confidence. But what happens is, because he's a smart kid, he then goes, oh yeah, but if I have the powers, it's about responsibility. And because he's a good family kid that wants to be a good person, he wants to use his powers for good. So you have a completely noble, bright character who is able to self-actualize very quickly. He's very self-aware. He makes jokes. He tries not to kill people. He is exactly what a teenage fantasy would be like. Like, you want things to work out. Now, the reason why the MCU Spider-Man is really annoying to watch, knowing all of that, is because they'd go, okay, he's now a goofball that fucks up a lot, which is what they do to all these men. They turn every man into Peter Griffin, but without a family. So it's like he doesn't know how to figure shit out yet because he's too immature to figure that out. That's why he needs the suit to help him do the. It's like, no, he doesn't. A man needs to figure shit out on his own, and Spider-Man figuring shit out was the pain and the drama. That was how that we remember key incidents in Spider-Man's life because they are traumatic, not only to him, but in the audience's perspective. The thing that breaks Spider-Man is also what breaks the canonicity of Spider-Man and makes you feel bad. The symbiote thing, where he becomes a different person, is actually really, really powerful in that he feels like it's a metaphor for him losing his identity as Peter Parker to a costume that's actually an alien. Forget the alien. It's literally just about him losing his identity to Spider-Man instead of Peter Parker, which is why Spider-Man 2 is the way that it was in the movie. That's the concept. He loses the girl because he loses his identity to Spider-Man and doesn't have enough time to do all these different things. He can't take care of Aunt May, become a scientist that has a promising future with all these other super scientists, and be Spider-Man and be a responsible hero all at the same time and have a relationship. And juggling all of these things and the cost of all of these things is what makes Spider-Man interesting. That's why when he loses Gwen Stacy, it's painful. Because he could have done it as Spider-Man. That's impetus for him to fall deeper into being Spider-Man, which then changes his perspective when it comes to Mary Jane. Then being married and being a superhero, that's the thing that makes... That's, to me, is the growth of a character. So, like, the reason why Captain Kirk is cool to me in the Star Trek movies after 2 and on is that it deals with a middle-aged Kirk who's an aging star. Everybody on the show is aging. But the director and the writers embrace that. So when Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man ages, it becomes about how he cannot... How is he going to explain a bruise that he gets from fighting a supervillain to his classroom of students that he's teaching? That he's teaching because he doesn't have a better source of income and his wife is busy being a supermodel. Like, those are human problems. And that's how you age up the character. But we have to go in these tight meme loops of what are the things that people are going to recognize? What are people going to recognize? Is it the guy that killed Spider-Man's parents? Yes. It's Aunt May, then put her in there. It's the suit. It's the web shooters. It's the fact that he is in love with Mary Jane. It's go get him, Tiger. That's all that they're going to do over and over again. Because taking a risk and coming up with something new might not give you $1 billion. But that's what the character needs to do to follow the same path of legendary iconic status as the other characters, as the comic book version. It's what is going to happen, and I guarantee this, unless I'm just an idiot. Maybe I hope this happens. But the point is that I think what's going to happen is we're going to end up with a cinematic television universe from the 2010s and 2020s that history will look back on as an inferior copy of the comics, ultimately. And as the technology moves on and forward, people are going to go and say, wow, Avengers really doesn't look that good. That's the destiny, because what did they root it in? People are going to go back and say, wow, Guardians of the Galaxy was really good. I really like these characters. Tony Stark and Iron Man was really cool. It's going to be the same thing over and over again. Until what? What is the next step that you can take these characters? The reason why I have that conclusive opinion is because the only way that they can do anything else is to go multiverse, which the comics did, or to restart the character's story, which the comics did. So how is it any different than this generation being an audio-visual generation instead of a reading generation? It's the same thing. We're getting the same content.
Oh, yeah, they're just going to take all the various iterations of all the various universes, like you said, Ultimate Spider-Man. I think he dies in that one. So there's all these opportunities just for bringing that flavor of Spider-Man or Batman or whatever to the screen or the small screen. And that's what people want to see. They want to see that soundbite, that not the binge watching necessarily, but they want that thing at their fingertips. And I think that's going to be the new, if the MCU or whatever they're doing with Netflix these days is the new thing, is the hot thing that people want, they're going to keep going that route. The problem is everything they've done post Endgame has not been very attractive to audiences.
No.
So,
They ran out of the main A-lister characters.
well, it's more than that. It's actually the writing. The writing is just
No, because they
shit.
just wanted. Yeah, it's fucking garbage.
We could say they're not using the
Right,
right IPs, but it's just the writing itself.
I make the same argument when I talk about Game of Thrones, how they only had 4 seasons worth of books to go off of, and then when they went in their own direction, it was a steady decline into things that, as they got further away from the source material, they got further into weird fan service and poor decisions. And I feel like that's reflective of what's happening with Marvel. The further they get into the obscure stuff, the more difficulty the same people that were successful before and new people are gonna have. They're gonna have more difficulty at presenting those concepts.
They
Because
could have
it's like,
done many things.
These concepts are really esoteric, even for the comic people. Like God-based stuff in comics is really weird. That's why Loki is such a weird thing. It's like, what exactly is the reality that we're dealing with? Now we're so integrated into the universe and the plot that we're now messing with the meta of it on like a Back to the Future 2 level. I don't think that's a good idea to keep the coherent integrity, which is why I think Multiverse of Madness is going to introduce the concept that none of it matters. And all the canon that you want is over here or over there. I think they're going to blow it all up and be like, fuck it, guys.
Well, they have to, right?
I don't know. I wanted them to, I always don't get what I want from people that are ignoring what I want. So
I don't know, since the whole since the whole Marvel and DC stuff in a way is based on resetting and retelling the same stories over and over in different iterations again. I think that is the only way this will go in the movies, or at least they will try.
Well,
it's a bit more expensive to make for these big movies than for a couple comic pages. That's obviously that's obvious.
There's nothing inherently wrong with rebooting or resetting or changing or this or that.
Oh no, that's not one. I'm not condemning that. I'm just saying that's I fear the only direction it can ever go, because that is what how these comic book studios operated for decades. And with the declining quality, like for Game of Thrones is a perfect example. You see that numerous times. I think almost without exception, I would need to dig one up if there is one. You see that every time an anime is made about a successful, interesting manga, the manga isn't finished, and the anime is running out of manga to copy. Then the anime goes into a weird direction with weird ideas that have absolutely nothing to do with where the manga wanted to go, including entire concepts of how the world works. And that's usually the inferior version. Game of Thrones is just the absolute pinnacle of that, going absolute nuts.
Well, they could have actually they would have exhausted their budget before they even attempted to go through line by line of the books of Game of Thrones. They could have had decades of Game of Thrones. We could still be watching Game of Thrones from book 3 at this point if they just did page by page. So obviously the adaptation will cut some stuff out, but it would have been fine, and people would keep buying it. Advertisers would keep spending money, and we'd have fantastic TV programming from HBO. But for whatever reason, I mean, obviously the showrunners get tired. You can't just have the same showrunners every time, but that's not a big deal either.
The showrunners were never interested in the thing in the first place.
Well, yeah, but
it's rather that actors can get tired of.
Yeah, exactly. So you can recast people, you can get people in charge again. That's not the problem. The thing is, they decided to condense and clip out, as opposed to make things make a little bit more sense, like we saw with Lord of the Rings adaptations, where you took massive, huge swaths of writing and just cut it out, and to make a coherent narrative. Just because
the makers of the Lord of the Rings movies cared about Lord of the Rings.
Well, they're just better writers, honestly. They knew how to cut. They knew how to edit. They knew how to film. They knew how to. put
Weiss
these
and
things-
Benioff did never care about Game of Thrones in the first place.
Oh, we know
and
that.
that has to lead to an inferior product that falls apart.
Right. I totally agree. Those guys were playing their own weird game of who knows what, and that shows. But the thing is, they could have kept going. They could have been lazy. They could have just taken what was there and say, okay, how do we translate this to the screen? We'll cut it up and go like that, as opposed to, I don't know what to make of this scene. Let's just skip to the next chapter. Oh, I don't know what to make of that scene. Let's skip to the next book. So that's ended up happening. We only had, was it 7?
That scene wouldn't look cool. Let's skip it.
Yeah. It wouldn't look attractive.
Let's skip to a cool looking scene.
Yeah. When there was plenty of drama in every single chapter of those books. They weren't written because Martin had to hit a quota. He was doing it for a labor of love at the time. And that was his only, thankfully at the time, his only focus. Whereas now he's just, I don't know what the hell happened to Martin. And it's become a tragedy to see this guy I wanted to finish the series, and it's been a decade now, 9 years. And it's just sad. He's like, dude, get over yourself. You're gonna die soon.
I'm just running with this hypothesis that he already finished it. He just waits until that will only be published after his death.
Oh yeah.
That he has it finished, even bound, lying on his bedroom table, and he has a note on there that when he's found dead from, I don't know, diabetes or whatever, and after that it will be published, so he doesn't have to listen to all the complaints about who dies and what happens and all the nonsense.
It's a possibility. I know he's still actively making Eden. Was it Eden Ring, or what is that? The video game coming out. Was it from Software? Who's the guys who made Dark Souls? Who are those guys?
Yeah, that's From Software.
Yeah. So
yeah, well, I think he's just it's just his life joke that he has a post-death. It's his personal post-death joke that he's gloating about.
I really hope you're right.
Not telling anyone.
That would explain many things, because he doesn't need the money. He doesn't care for it. He doesn't need the notoriety. He doesn't need to go out more, do any of the conventions. All he has to do is write. So I'm assuming,
and he can get a nice, very annoying footnote in history that he will be remembered by. Not just by the books, but by pulling off a really, really stupid and annoying stunt.
Well, maybe he could have hired like Neil Gaiman to finish it off, or all sorts of fantasy authors.
I wouldn't hire Neil Gaiman for this one.
He could do it, but maybe you're right. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. Francis Ford Coppola again. Brief aside, but anyone else think Peter's relationship with Dry Heave's Michelle Jones is poorly fleshed out and lacking any chemistry? And I don't care that they're teenagers and that develop crushes. That's not an excuse for bad character writing. It depends. You have to look at the behavior they have, what kind of social dynamics they have with themselves. Where are they in the world?
She's just the emo girl.
The emo, isn't she also smart though? She's also a smart girl. Like, she's not stupid.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit.
She won the Academy, I think, or the science.
She's a bit introspective. Contest. She's not like the way MJ was in the comics, of course. So it could work. It's a different interpretation, and that's because it's new. You have to flesh it out a bit more. And I haven't seen it, but from the clips I saw, it's like, all right, that's fine. Just why change the redhead to what is she Latina? What is she?
Because we hate redheads. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going.
And that's that. Finance is solved. Peter has money from here on. This doesn't happen in the original comics at all. Peter is a loner who doesn't have a mentor, and that's kind of the whole point, that after Ben dies, Peter is alone and has to find his own way, both morally and
we're
financially.
making the same point.
In the comics, the most similar character to Iron Man in Peter's life would probably be another wealthy scientist who dresses up in a costume and flies around New York. Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin.
No. What's the dude from Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic, or the Lizard guy? You know why?
Dr. Reed.
You know why? It's because Stan Lee loved fucking scientist shit, because Frankenstein. That's what it all was. It's all mad scientists going crazy and creating, like, what's the easiest way to come up with new superpowers? Oh, it's a scientist whose experiment fucked up. Let's just run it. That's so many people.
Yeah.
Villain is Spider Foil. He's older, he's morally corrupt, and
You'll never defeat me, Spider-Man!
It's just Smud Boy versus me is dressed up as the Green Goblin. He's like, why are you dressed up like that?
You'll never defeat me, Smud!
he's incredibly wealthy and privileged in a way Peter probably never will be. In the very first ever issue of Spider-Man, Peter tries to join the Fantastic Four because he's hoping it'll be a paid gig. Unfortunately, they're a non-profit and tell him to piss off. That's how Spider-Man first met the Fantastic Four, to pay his rent. A criminal known as the Chameleon realizes Spider-Man must be desperate for money and uses that to lure him to a location to frame him. Peter's first supervillain. In his second issue, Peter is trying to get photos of a villain called the Vulture to sell them to the Daily Bugle to pay his bills. And that's how he meets the Vulture. 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming flips the story of how Peter met the Vulture completely. Rather than Peter and May Parker being the people struggling with money, it's the villain.
I booked this
Also, the Vulture fucking sucks no matter what. Even if you make it Michael Keaton, fuck the Vulture.
whole place. We got people I have to look after.
The Vulture.
Oh, it's an old man who flies! Oh no!
AKA Adrian
Did you
Toomes,
see
finds
Discount
his
Tom
business
Hardy?
becoming
All you need is a sniper rifle to take out this motherfucker.
obsolete. He's a blue-collar worker with a family to support. Look, his collar's literally blue. He has a business to run, employees to pay, and he's being put out of work. He had a contract with the city. He was meant to be cleaning up after the Battle of New York, but policy changed and his company was laid off, replaced by a company working for none other than Playboy billionaire superhero
Costume
Tony
is pretty
Stark.
awesome though.
He then starts making weapons with stolen.
By the way, that's really stupid. We always gotta paint Tony Stark as the villain, even though we've been characterizing him as becoming more of a hero.
He is a hero. He's the hero.
Yeah, the hero that sacrificed his life to save the universe. But no, Far From Home, we gotta make him we still gotta make him a piece of shit because he stole the invention of somebody, the Jake Gyllenhaal character or whatever.
With stolen alien technology, which people use for things like breaking into ATMs, real high-stakes violence. What a bastard. If only there were a worse character in the Marvel Universe I could compare him to. Someone who maybe, like, built and sold weapons that facilitated in the killing of thousands of people in Afghanistan. No, I can't think of anyone. As an Avengers intern, Peter is treated like crap. In part because he's a kid and kids are annoying, so it's okay to treat them like crap, obviously, but also, have you never been on a private plane before? Who hasn't been on a private plane? What kind of stupid loser child has never been on a private plane? As an Avengers intern, this kind of makes Peter a member of Stark's private military.
Oh
This
yeah,
is a child
brother.
living in poverty who was brought into a
Wait, oh, private military?
Iron Man's Blackwater. Kid, do you want to join Executive Outcomes? We're taking over this country one piece at a time, baby.
Did he not see the movie? Like, what the fuck? He's like telling Peter like to do his own shit. Focus on school, do what you gotta do. We'll call you when we need you. And it's been like, what, month? Oh, how is that a start of a private military?
No idea.
private military by a powerful man who literally came to his home, blackmailed him by threatening to reveal his secret identity to his aunt, and made him join his special military force. In the real world, young people from low-income families are disproportionately targeted for recruitment by the US military with promises of a bright career and a paid college education. Stark's recruitment of Peter Parker...
So wait a second. He's comparing, or she is comparing the propaganda or selling of people trying to get into military from the U.S. government as a bad thing.
He said, yeah.
Yes.
The thing about the GI Bill that's so funny, like getting a college education in turn for being in the military, was that in World War I and World War II, there was such a devastating manpower loss that they needed to educate people. So like, yeah, we'll pay you to be educated. And that's now like seen as gatekeeping education, but it's not. It just gets your education paid. You can still go to a fucking community college if you want to. It's funny how people have this sort of backwards way of criticizing issues. Like, what do you mean the military people get the GI Bill? Everybody should have free education. And you're like, yeah, but that's a separate issue. How can you conflate one with the other? We live in a society that allows slavery. What, you mean like allowing people in prison to do something like labor? It's such an interesting way of looking at issues. Like, everything is terrible. And I'm going to prove why it's terrible. Everything needs to change because it's terrible.
I do recall watching a YouTuber who was looking at the Call of Duty games and saying they were propaganda for getting people into the military. And I was like, oh, okay.
It's so stupid. I think that's so dumb. Like, most of the Call of Duty games are not... Like, if your idea of getting into the military is based on Call of Duty, you probably were inclined to do that shit anyway. You know what I mean? Like, how easy is it to get you to join an organization where you get to shoot things if you get to shoot things? You know?
Yeah. I
like to think that every time that America goes to war, Steven Spielberg puts on a miniseries, and that's when people want to join the military.
Well, it's interesting because as a result of Smudcast, I met a lot of Americans, and they have either gone to the military and finished their service, or spent how many years, or about to go in. So it seems to be a very common thing, not to most Americans, but just to the people I've spoken to who have done something with their life outside of school, as opposed to just going to school and doing the thing in reality that they were taught to do. So it seems like a good thing.
There's a lot of knuckleheads in the army just for a free paycheck, or to have a job, to get a education, to get citizenship. There's a ton of people like that. But you know what's funny is that even though we have fucking the draft, we don't really conscript people in recent times. We don't like force people to join, that kind of thing. And enticing people to join a military, saying that's inherently bad is like going, I don't support my country's military, which really is an interesting thing. It's like, okay, so why is that? Why would you have? Are you a traitor, or is it like you don't like what the military is doing, which means that you have a larger, again, why are you conflating this issue with the other issue? If you have a problem with geopolitics, why are you looking at the last line of defense and the spear tip for who's throwing it? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. It's like blaming the police for crime. Why are you doing that? Why are you saying that it's bad for a country to try and convince its young men to join up in the military? What part of that is unethical or immoral?
Because war, it's bad. It makes us cry.
See, what's funny is that the advertising that they've noticed for militaries is that if you make it realistic, people won't join. There was a really good advertisement for the SAS or something like that. Some very high-end elite group, and their recruitment numbers went down because they were like, can you do this? They just at straight value said, can you do this? But the problem is that the people that get selected to go to those things are joining the military anyway because they want that challenge. Like, there are some people that just have that jawline that you see on every single operator or whatever, soldier, special ops guy. And there's a huge difference between some dude that was like, I drove a truck, and a dude that was like, yeah, I was frontline every time. Those people have like a predisposition to it. What I noticed about this person that's talking is that they probably wouldn't be anywhere near the front line or a war. And this person's criticizing the military and the government and shit. And they're like, this person wouldn't sit in the trench next to me and die for our territory or our people. What do you stand for? Most of the people that criticize the military or police structures or whatever are people that would never do the job. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Here is John Doe, the Average Joe. Thank you for the 5. Can we agree that Vulture's costume is better for flight than Captain Falcon's, despite one being made from alien scrap and another from Wakandan tech? Which is
why do you need fucking wings if Iron Man can just fly around with that shit? What the fuck? Come on. Just give everybody Iron Man suits.
How else are you gonna look unique?
You'd think that the number one thing that the military would want is the Iron Man suit. And then after they have the War Machine suit, they can't figure out, all the smartest people in the world can't figure out how to reverse engineer a half-assed version of that. When Iron Man can come up with a dope-ass suit that can stop bullets right in front of him in a cave. It's really stupid.
Well, they tried it in Iron Man 2, I believe.
Why would there be any hero that's on Iron Man's side that wouldn't have Iron Man tech the tech added on to their shit. If they give it to Spider-Man, why don't they give it to everybody? Why is Hawkeye running around with a bow?
Why are
No
you thinking
armor,
about
no
this?
helmet.
Stop
because-
criticizing the thing I love.
Just stop criticizing it. It's like, don't bring in the adaptation argument. But the entire reason why Hawkeye is the way that he is because of the source material. That's what's so frustrating about people that I argue with about this shit. It's like, do you want it to be like the comic, or do you want it to be what a cinematic movie's like? Which of these makes more sense to you? Or do you want it to be really realistic, like in that hyper nerd fashion where everything has to be explained? Like, pick a lane. Don't just pick the opposite lane that I'm not in.
Good point, yeah.
Fucking jerk off.
Here is insult to the human race. Thank you for the 5. Also, Tony stopped his company's weapons production once he learned what they were really being used for, so that comparison falls flat too. I guess
Yes.
being in charge, was he in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D.? I don't remember the story because I didn't watch the films, but he was obviously recruiting people, right? So they were a group, they were a task force doing specialized operations. So I don't think a small team is a military or is an army. It's just...
Wasn't it in Iron Man 1 already where at the end he realized that his rockets were sold to the terrorists? And he was... He or someone he cared about was almost blown up by one of them.
Yeah, he finds out his friend Obadiah Stane has been supplying terrorists with weapons. And so he stopped all that shit.
The classic realization of the irony.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where he establishes that he's solved World War or whatever, a military struggle, because he's Iron Man. Or he makes that declare.
Oh, Iron Man 2. He privatized world peace, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway.
Okay, echoes this because in this particular instance, Stark really does represent the government and the military.
No, he
Tony
doesn't.
Stark
No.
has money, and that money comes from
No.
Stark is a
He
genius war
is...
The first 2 Iron Man
They
films
call
were
him-
co-scripted by the U.S. Department of Defense.
If anything,
With
he's an
sponsorship from the
anarcho-capitalist.
Pentagon,
They call him the
usually in
merchant
the
of
form
death.
being...
I'm
Because
sorry, my
he's
bad.
an arms dealer. He's not a military commander, and never is like, yeah, let's go fight these just fucking, let's go fight ISIS. You know what I mean? The Avengers are never out on the front line doing military operations with special forces and like jumping out of C-130s and shit. That's not the point. It's so stupid. You're trying to conflate, always doing this job of trying to conflate superheroes into real world scenarios and trying to justify how your political opinion is correct again through this lens is so stupid, because they're doing everything they can in the MCU to distinguish the superheroes from being a real world force for a specific political organization. S.H.I.E.L.D., the whole point of the Civil War and the reason why it's interesting is that people are like, we should have oversight. No, we shouldn't. We should be beholden to the people. Yeah, but we are the people. It's like, that's the interesting conflict. It's never that Iron Man is out there trying to build outer heaven with a bunch of superheroes. That's like what Magneto wants.
Even then, it's like Tony only does it because he's just guilty. That's why he even sides with the pro-registration. Whereas Captain America, he's, if you've seen the previous Captain America movies, he doesn't trust government. But it stops being about that because then we got to stop Zemo and his Winter Soldier plan.
Form of being military vehicles, aircrafts, and equipment for filming battle scenes, which would otherwise be unavailable to filmmakers or require expensive special effects. American films which portray the military need the Pentagon's approval, so the military has to be portrayed in an uncontroversial way.
Yeah.
Glib, you're muted.
Yeah, Glib.
Glib,
Oh, my bad.
you there?
My bad. Yeah. Sorry about that. My phone was ringing. I was going to say that the military will only help you if you do something that's positive, but you don't require their help to portray them. You know, you can go to the Philippines and use their equipment if you want to. That's what Apocalypse Now did. You can go to anywhere else and have them portray the American military, or build your own private military for film.
Well, even in there's the Hulk movie. I know everybody forgets it, but the military is pretty scummy in that movie. I don't know what he's talking about.
You don't need the actual military's help to create stories about the military.
Way, effectively turning the films into military propaganda. Marvel's relationship to the Pentagon broke down after the Avengers, but they're back in bed since 2019's Captain Marvel. In the first Iron Man film, Tony leaves weapons manufacturing for the military behind, but soon after, Nick Fury offers him a job working for the Avengers, which is a military under secret organization S.H.I.E.L.D. So he doesn't provide weapons for the US military anymore. He only provides human weapons for the S.H.I.E.L.D. military.
But after S.H.I.E.L.D. falls...
Whoa, he does not provide any sort of weapons to S.H.I.E.L.D. What he is a consultant at best.
That's what the whole conflict's about, which is funny. It's like, okay,
yeah,
look, they're it's a bunch of Americans, and the government is like, okay, you guys can't be a bunch of just like yeehaw motherfuckers, and we have to clean up the damage for you because you're American citizens living on American soil. There has to be some sort of reciprocity here, and then that becomes a primary conflict. So I don't understand, again, what the problem is with this. Like, what you want to have a bunch of people running around with super powered weapons and technology that could be a threat to the United States government if those people got captured, you know, or if they became traitors or whatever, they sold those things or they gave them away or somebody, or they're a threat. It's like the motivation behind Batman being afraid of Superman. The whole point is that if they decide to do something that goes against the government, then what is the government supposed to do? And even if the government isn't representing the people, the concept of a bunch of people just running around like a bunch of cowboys is unpalatable to a lot of people. But like, what right do the Avengers have to interfere in international things? Like, who and who's going to stop?
Especially the Iron Man and Hulk fight in that African city or whatever the hell it's called, and they destroyed a whole entire building.
You can be really like snarky about this and just be like, oh, you know, they're American military operators and they're operating without the Geneva Convention and like doing a whole bunch of extradition, and like you'd be like, okay, yeah, but
that's how I know she's bullshitting, because
what is
it's
the alternative? Like, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
What is they're just gonna allow these people to just run around the world and fucking it's the authority thing. Who's in charge of protecting Earth from aliens? Fucking a bunch of the CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, in an Iron Man suit, like, or the government?
I don't know. You just got to do better, okay?
Just do something. You have to tell that story. You have to tell about how they worked that out, and there's like a schism in the organization. That's why people like that story. Like, oh, they should be forming their new organization. It should be called CHOP, and it should be a totally autonomous zone for all these minorities. Like, that's what fucking like what I bet she would like is the thing that Cable made, that like floating island, you know. Instead of America, we'll be our own country. She wants to plot a Metal Gear. In Cable and Deadpool, he creates a place called Providence, I believe, and it's a floating city like BioShock, and it just floats around international waters, and everybody wants to go there because there's an opportunity to be on like a sci-fi like, it's the idea is that all this people that go there that are super powered, and since Cable's from the future, he can use all this futuristic technology to provide a better life than the governments that are stuck in the past, because we can't move the comical too far away from our world. If we have a superhero scientist come up with a cure for cancer, then suddenly it's not our universe anymore. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. There's like a break that always happens between our world and the world of superhero comics. So what happens in this case is, it's like, okay, if you actually do have an Iron Man suit, everybody and their mother is going to want to get their hands on it government-wise, because you're going to want all these intel agencies. The Pakistani intelligence agency is going to be trying to figure out how to get their hands on an Iron Man suit. Every single group, every corporation, it's a huge issue, which is why they made Iron Man 2 that. because it's about industrial espionage. And that's when Iron Man realizes, oh shit, I can't just be Iron Man because people are going to steal my suits. I have to figure out how to do this. So then he joins the Avengers. He wants this whole thing so that there's some sort of accountability, which is what his character is always looking for, because he's not accountable to anybody, and that's actually a risk to him. If he doesn't have a teammate, if he doesn't have other people that can help him, and he gets compromised, then everybody's fucked.
He wants a Watchman.
That's the point. So it's like being snarky and making fun of the thing that's smarter than you. It makes you look really stupid. They thought through. They asked all the right questions when it came to the narrative of these phases of the Marvel universe, which is like, okay, Iron Man has a suit. Then what happens? Well, everybody wants it. The government wants it. They want to recreate it. Other corporations want to make it. That's the thing. And then what happens if Iron Man gets taken out of the picture and he gets sick and all these different things? It's like those are all real life consequences that could actually happen to him. And at that point, it stops being about Iron Man and starts being about how Iron Man is in relation to all the other heroes that have come after him, because he's the beginning of that shit. And Captain America is the other beginning of that shit, because he dates back to the 1940s. So the two concepts of heroes from two totally different eras, from two totally different backgrounds, have just an intellectual difficulty and then an emotional difficulty that's tangential to that in the B story that makes the conflict happen. It's brilliant. From that meta perspective, it's perfect. And this person's coming and being like, Iron Man's a PMC, dude. He's like Blackwater, dude. We gotta rise up, dude. Do you understand how annoying that is?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Talking about fiction.
Just categorizing what Iron Man is, what S.H.I.E.L.D. is, as just a military organization without understanding what it actually does. But that is one interpretation of it. It's a very loose one. So,
A military organization that was infiltrated by Nazis, Hydra.
Well, a subversive ideology, which tends to happen.
Yeah.
Malicious groups tend to infiltrate other groups. That's the natural thing. That's the enemy from within is usually harder to fight than the enemy from the outside.
That's what all the intelligence agencies do. They just fucking infiltrate and then go, hey everybody, we should blow up a federal building, and then people are like, haha, and they get caught up in some sting, and it's like, oh, look at how bad these people are. They want to blow up a federal building. They came up with that themselves. I had nothing to do with that. And it's like, we need to increase the budget now. Good job, Jenkins. You successfully infiltrated this organization that had a political opinion that was counter to ours. Well done. Yeah, we did it, man.
Even in Germany, was decades ago. There were cases where small neo-Nazi and Antifa groups, both, turned out to be almost entirely government agents.
Exactly. Is it government agents fucking raiding a bunch of government agents who are
and trying to agitate the other agents into doing something so that they could have a reason to detain them, not knowing that they are other agents. Dude, what are you doing?
Imagine just like it's a sci-fi movie and everybody's just a government agent, just like spying on each other. You know what I mean? Every single person works for an agency, and everybody acts like nobody works for the agency, and it's just all like, the other day I heard that Teddy was fucking doing gay shit. Yeah, well, you know what? I heard that you were doing gay shit. It's like, oh shit, who told you that? The other agency that I work for that's above your agency. Oh shit. I had to tell Special Affairs about that.
Sounds like a bad sci-fi comedy.
Yeah, just
it's
Spy Game.
It's one of these things that
starring Melissa
Make it work.
McCarthy and Sandra Bullock, age 85.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's one of these absurd things that is too real because it is real.
I'm spying.
Clown World.
I work for the Clown Intelligence Agency.
After S.H.I.E.L.D. falls apart, the Avengers become kind of his private army, just something all billionaires should
Kind
have.
of, but
One
not really,
private
you know,
military
not
for
at
each
all.
beach house, ideally. For the record, I'm not judging. I love the rich. Trickle down economics. You know, if the rich didn't have all the money, where would we even put
Oh
it?
God.
We get it.
These sarcastic jokes do not land.
Yeah, this is getting sad. Just so you guys know,
Seriously,
there is no
I'm
such
choking
thing
on my
as
spit
trickle.
right now.
There is no such thing as trickle down. It's not an economic theory. It's a catchphrase. There is no book on it. You can't research that. It was a term invented in the 80s with Reagan, I believe. Or
yeah, it was Reagan was all about trickle down economics, and then they called it Reaganomics, and nobody can iterate on what that actually means.
Yeah.
Just basically less regulation. They don't like that. Okay, fine. You don't want regulation. Got it. Okay. You want more. You want the government to be regulating everything. That's what I get it. Understood.
That's why Spider-Man to communism, right?
With great power comes communism.
Oh God.
It's just kind of funny that it would take about a good 10-minute conversation talking about economics with these people to just shatter their life view, to explain how humanity works.
No, they would still believe there.
Well, that would be hate speech, right?
The thing is that all socialist Marxist thought relies on the beginning point, which is that capitalism and wealth is accumulated by exploiting people's labor, and that is that's unethical. It's unethical to exploit people's labor. So what's interesting to me is that the baseline for liberal equalitarian like republic or democratic or even anything, just that idea is that nobody should be a slave, right? So everybody should be paid a wage. Now at that point, how is it possible that you won't in some sense be exploiting someone's labor? What is the alternative to paying somebody a wage to exploit their body and mind to do a task that you want them to do? Because even if let's say that is like, you just want somebody to wait a table. Because you're trying to sell food. How are you going to do that? What is the mechanism that allows that to happen? And from this, and then let's not exploit people point of view.
Well, the first fallacy is that
Maybe
is the assumption that it is exploitation by definition in every instance.
No, I'm accepting.
When I have too much work.
Exploitation. You're using somebody else's body and mind for a task. That's great. If I want to,
it's not exploitation. It's a mutual contract.
But
I have more work to do to get this thing done. To run this restaurant, I need to do more work than I, as one person, can do. So I offer you this much to do this menial task, so that the food can get from the kitchen to the people.
So what?
Do you accept what I can, the share I can give you for that? You say, yeah, okay.
Okay, so what they
that's not exploitation.
Is that they want that they're always trying to say, oh, we want this organization to be like a worker co-op owned thing where everybody has a say, that kind of thing. And what they don't understand is this idea of the tragedy of the commons. The difference between the individualist, capitalist, economic idea thinking and then the collectivist Marxist type thinking is where the ideas to create a profitable enterprise or to create a successful enterprise come from. And most people that build businesses understand that it doesn't come from the community of the workers coming together to create the product. It comes from somebody creating a group of people creating something and then needing labor to produce it for more than one person for the sake of surplus. You can grow your own food in a garden, but if you want to grow food for a surplus or you want to grow it for other people, then you need help. And this idea of the division of labor and that kind of thing is what this is all about. So what I always am trying to figure out is how can you even produce an organization that's behind someone's idea without them being in charge of that idea, without a group of people that are organizing that idea and directing it? There's always going to be a lack of equity and outcome. And it's not, I don't think it's the economy or the government or anybody in charge's responsibility to make you more creative or to make you, like their employees more involved in leadership. That's what I always find interesting. So like, I think the primary difference between people that believe in the capitalist system and believe in like this socialist stuff is that they think that everybody is just oppressed and is actually capable of being the boss with other people and cooperating, and that the bosses are just oppressing them. They don't think that people are incapable of being their own bosses at certain times in their experience, which I think is the thing. The major difference is the idea that everybody is just oppressed but is secretly capable, which is why there's so many Mary Sues in fiction these days, versus the idea that you need to earn your right and your way, which means that the people that have already earned their way are going to lay down the foundation that you're going to base your success on, which is the idea of like, oh, somebody built this company up by making crackers, and now they're the number 1 cracker manufacturer in the world because of the advancements they personally did to their factory. Why did Ford succeed where other people didn't succeed? That's what a business person's thinking, that an individual builds up and out. And then the socialist Marxist thinking is like, this is inherent. I need to redistribute it because right now there's an imbalance in the force. And that's why I think it's a bunch of hogwash.
Yes, there's several things coming together that make me, in the end, today, believe that the whole horizontal hierarchy bullshit and leadership, the flat hierarchy stuff, is nothing but a scam for manipulative people on the Dunning-Kruger scale to have it easier to take over something and then run it into the ground, because once they are in charge, things fall apart, because they think themselves competent but are as incompetent as they think themselves competent.
Only the government can oppress you because the government is the one that has the power to enforce. So if there's some sort of rich guy capitalist cabal or something like that running the government, then the only reinforcement that you're supposed to have against individual citizens and their enterprises is the government. That you have an issue with the government, not with rich people, because if people get too much power, they're going to be corrupted indefinitely. They're going to try and put things in their favor. So if you have a weak government and weak values in society that are going to sell out to the rich, you have a people problem and a government problem, and you're trying to be snarky and look at everybody and go, haha, these people are so stupid, they don't even understand. It's like, no, you have a real problem and you're just being snarky about it. That's all you got. You're like laughing, you're like, oh, we should kill the rich, we should eat the rich. It's like, that's not going to solve the problem of bad government. Now you're just going to have people that wear your clothing, same government.
It's Fanosian logic that if you just remove the problem of the rich once, that they will never be rich again. Like that's Thanos' fallacy in the MCU was that, well, if he just kills half the universe once, then everything will be fine because people don't reproduce again or something. I don't know what his logic even was.
Balance.
You just kill half of everything, then it'll never grow back. You know what I mean? Just like everything. That's totally makes sense.
That'll show him.
I like how Ego Dreamer is referencing the building in the background. This rich real estate developer, building homes for people or office space for people or whatever that building's used for. She's like, where would they put all this money? It's like, you see behind you that thing they're developing for everyone's benefit.
What is material again? Oh yeah, that's where they put their money into
every luxury. Every luxury you have today that you don't even think about is a luxury in your life, and that goes for this person too.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have without anyone ever employing anyone to market your idea.
Yeah, they think the rich just store their money in the bank and just do nothing with it, which is ridiculous. The way that people Sorry?
No, you were saying?
I'm just saying
that
because they're rich because they know how to use their money well. They know how to invest. They know how to put into real estate or the stock market or bonds or savings or what have you. They don't just spend it. They invest in their companies. They invest in their people. They invest in other companies that support their company. It's a very simple idea. And they always argue about taxes, this and that. It's like, yeah, once you make money, whether you're a worker or an employer, you want to learn to avoid taxes. You want to learn to be tax effective. And there's all kinds of legal loopholes, which are great because the tax system is so complex that in order to get around that, you have to do this or that or invest in this offshore company. It's like, good, do it, whatever it takes to keep your money. No one else deserves it. You should have 100% control over what you do with yourself and your resources. So this concept that you should give to the government is just like, why? What did the government ever do for you to have you make this profit? They're always in the way of that. And if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a real estate broker or whatever, and I want people to have housing, do you think the government's going to help me? Maybe they might give, I don't know, some sort of, what was that American, was it Bill Clinton or was it Bush, where they wanted everyone to own a house in America? That was one of the prerogatives of the government. So they would give like 10% loans, or they would help you pay your mortgage. And that was the whole big problem, which not entirely, but part of the problem that led to the 2007 and 2008 collapse. So there's all these problems that government try to get involved in. They end up ruining the issue. And we've seen this throughout history, hundreds of years ago. So it's not, actually thousands of years ago, in fact. But this is a whole other conversation. And I don't want to get into it, but we're more than halfway done this video. Now that she's talking about the rich, I'm like, okay, this is going to go nowhere. This is just going to be her.
I know, we get it. You hate rich people, capitalism bad, even though you're making a dumbass video.
It should be
on
about
the internet.
It should be
on
about
YouTube.
Spider-Man and what the class struggle is about, but we didn't really get into that. It was just she mentioned his class, which is the worker class or the high schooler with a job class, whatever you call that. So that's great.
Because if you're talking about the movie specifically, it has none of that.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
Not even the comic books, I don't think.
And I understand that that is a specific lens you can use to discuss a concept in detail. But
you can call it a lens, but I think over-interpretation is more accurate here.
Well, that's what always happens.
Yes.
Because
I don't know if
MCU
is not the perfect example.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the best example either. But when you read these essays or watch them on YouTube in this case, they always fall back on ideology. They do not fall back on the facts. And this is what ends up happening. You don't have a lens, you have a filter. It's like we're going to block out all the other context, all the other elements, and we're just going to magnify the fact that Spider-Man is poor and he needs a job.
You can say that a lens can be just a filter. Some lenses are just that. They filter out certain parts of the light spectrum, for example.
Well, yes, but when we're talking about literary analysis with a lens, you don't block out the rest of it. You magnify the one element that is there, and then you address it within the proper context. You do not say, "Oh, if Spider-Man was in a, I don't know, Eastern European country, this is what would happen." You're like, maybe, yeah, sure, but that's not the story. So why are you bothering to go that route? So this is what we experimented with when I was in college and talking about how
sounds more useful.
Well, you need lenses to focus on things in the story. So to say, why does this scene work? Why does this romance work? Why do these characters get into the social fight they're in? And what causes that breakdown? What causes them to go away or walk away or have misgivings or be guilty or be sad? What is that? Where is that connection? Because then once you identify that, you can understand that human element of relationships, or at least that aspect of two people trying to figure out what went wrong. And we can do that objectively by taking a step back, as if we're some sort of, in that regards to, I don't know, a pickup artist or a matchmaking service or something like that. We can figure out, oh yeah, okay, this is a weird thing that between men and women we never thought about. So there's beautiful things you can do with a lens. And unfortunately, to have a political economic interpretation is not really, at least for Spider-Man, it's like, yeah, he's poor. We get it. What's your point? How does that help our understanding of the time period or the world he's in, or the other characters, the tertiary characters of the random guys on the street? Like, it doesn't do anything. She's not talking about that. It's just Parker is poor and Mr. Stark is rich. And you're like, yeah, so what's the problem? Anyway, we can keep going if you guys want for that 10 minutes. I don't see much point after this, but maybe this is just a joke and she's going to jump into militarization
if you want.
of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I don't care anymore.
I don't know. Something. We'll find out.
My girl jeans don't even have pockets, let alone my spandex. Before 2008, Iron Man wasn't an especially popular Marvel character.
True.
I remember as a kid...
Wait, what? What? No. You don't think Iron Man was popular
What happened?
before 2008?
No. Iron Man was not as popular as the other characters.
Sure.
He's not mainstream, right?
He wasn't
Well-
as big as Spider-Man.
He was like
Which character was as big as Spider-Man in Marvel?
Thor.
I
was
think
pretty
Spider-Man
big.
was the biggest.
Wolverine was huge.
Wolverine.
The
It's
X-Men in
funny that
general.
that's ironic to say Wolverine. was
Punisher.
huge.
he's like 5'4" or something like that.
Oh, get it? Because he's huge, Jackman? Yeah.
I think he's 5'1" canonically.
He's really tiny. Yeah, he's a small dude.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That's why he's a Wolverine. It's great.
Yeah. But yeah, X-Men
but-
was the biggest comic in Marvel.
It was Spider-Man and X-Men and
Punisher?
no. Even though those were popular, those weren't as popular with mainstream audiences. You know what I mean? Like there were the Captain America and Thor and Hulk and all those things. They're really popular in a way. But it's like when you think of superheroes as the top of the top, you'd think like, okay, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and then who else? That's the real way of thinking about like what's the most famous shit.
Well, yeah, you look at the number
You
of
put Hulk in there, you put Wolverine in there.
right. Like there was so many.
Captain
Like, there's still
America.
today. There's so many Batman comics. There are so many Spider-Man comics. There were a bunch of X-Men and flavors of X-Men comics. So that is how you pick apart the favorites because they have entire runs of different versions of that same hero. So Wolverine had a few. There's a Weapon X comic. Then all the crazy iterations like Alpha Flight and the Avengers eventually. Just everything was just this amalgamation of Marvel comics. And I think Marvel was beating DC for a while there until past decade where just no one is. I think because of the movies, yes, the IP is popular, but the sales have gone down for many reasons. So, and that's a whole other discussion. But yeah, I would say back in my day, Wolverine was huge, X-Men was huge, and Image Comics, Top Cow, Dark Horse, some of DC was still around.
I mean, there's a big difference between like diehard comic book fans and their favorite comics, and then what people knew that was just like, oh, I like that. You know what I mean?
I guess
There's a huge difference.
When I was going to the comic book store, they always have the recent releases, and it was usually Marvel. There was one or two DC comics. There was the JLA for sure. And
Look, okay, sorry. Let me put it this way. Watchmen is now a really well-known series because they made a movie about it, right? Before 2009, I was like, this is movie. It's going to be Watchmen. It's going to be awesome. It has all this shit, like the comic's great, da-da-da-da-da. And nobody knew what I was talking about except for the comic book fans who were like, oh, yeah, that's the most legendary one of,
Right.
absolutely. Of course I know about that one. Have you read that? But that's the group. That's the niche group. That's the in group is like, hell yeah, I know all of this shit.
But that's
And
why I
even in
knew
the
it would
in
suck.
group-
That's the core audience.
Yeah.
But like the in group was not. I don't think that the in group expected Guardians of the Galaxy to be successful.
No.
I think that they didn't think that would be a key thing for mainstream audiences, even though mainstream audiences, through interpreting it through James Gunn, made it popular. Using Jon Favreau or whatever to make a middle-aged man superhero story is a genius idea. That's smart. You know what I mean? But then there's a bunch of unsmart choices as well, like fucking doing Ant-Man and the Wasp with the way that they did it, and Captain Marvel and all these different things that we hate and that kind of thing. But then it's a smart business decision if it works on paper. That's the thing that's really annoying about it. But like even today, I'll use an example. If I go out there and I talk to somebody who doesn't know comic books and I say, hey, have you heard of Transmetropolitan? They'll be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
If I go to people that know the MCU and I say, hey, have you heard of Astro City by Kurt Busiek? They'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
But that's if somebody made an Astro City television show and it was successful, everybody would know about it. And they'd be like, where have you been? What do you know? Have you watched this show? You're way behind on things.
Well, it's kind of like looking at
that's not-
Preacher because that's the same level of not the same level, but the same content of adult fiction. And I don't even watch the show Preacher. I doubt it's anywhere near as entertaining as the comic.
Fuck no. Come on.
Well, it's the same with Watchmen or any of the Alan Moore adaptations to movie. They're just not going to translate well at all. They're too nuanced.
It's even better.
Oh, really? there's so much nuance in the Alan Moore comics, like even League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is very specific, and I think could only be told in comic book properly. So to see it on the screen, I didn't even watch it because I knew it was going to be horrible. Just to see some of the adaptations was like, okay, Sean Connery, not a bad choice. But everything else was like, this is not going to fly. This is not
the only Alan Moore adaptation I really enjoy and I think is good is the V for Vendetta movie. I think that's like my favorite comic book movie probably.
That was simple enough. That was easy enough to translate. That's the easiest to understand. Yeah. It's very, very clean plot, very simple characters, not too many of them. And that was all you needed. And that you could tell that with the movie, no problem. That's why it's great. With
life sucks. Join me and we'll destroy the government. Why would I do that? Because they killed your parents and it was a false flag. Oh no, okay, I'll join you. No, you're not hard enough yet. You gotta go through what I went through, and then you'll understand my pain. Also, I'm gonna kill myself for the cause.
Yeah.
Oh, he killed himself, but I loved him. Why'd you let that happen, Inspector? Because the government's corrupt. Classic story. But it's great because it's like the even boiled down, and Alan Moore's like, I don't like that movie, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but it's all of the details that are changed. They do detract from the story, but the story is so strong that the quality of the movie adaptation is still high enough. It still gets a lot of messages across, even though they've tampered with it. That's why I like it.
Yeah.
A lot of comic book movies that they tamper with so substantially, like Watchmen, that things get removed from it.
Yeah, like
Watchmen, they removed the color, they removed the ending, they removed lines that were key to understanding the entire thing.
Oh yeah, you could probably, let's say, take Mouse and turn that into
oh my god, that'd be hilarious.
An animated series. It would just be very not old school animation.
No, it wouldn't be good.
It would be hard to do, but if you just took panel from panel and just animated the scenes in between, it would work. Yeah. It would just be very different than what you'd expect.
See, I would look at it and I'd be like, oh man, like they're going to have to make it bigger. They're going to have to make it.
Oh God.
They're going to give the dialogue to it. It's going to feel weird hearing the voices instead of like what I was thinking of. Like, what's the music going to be like? There's certain things where you watch it and it ruins the book for you. And I remember when the Harry Potter books were coming out, I was like the same age as Harry and everybody. So I was reading the books and then the movies came out and I was like, okay, now when I read the books, I just think about Daniel Radcliffe. I can't think about what, I don't remember what Harry looked like in my head before I watched the movie. And that's the reason why I hate movies a lot of times is because they will destroy the imagination that you have for the character that you invent. Like, what does your James Bond look like? Well, it's Sean Connery, obviously, because I saw the movie with Sean Connery. But like, the conceptual idea of James Bond on paper isn't Sean Connery wearing a toupee.
It's one of 3 dozen reasons why I will never watch the Wheel of Time show.
Fuck that shit.
Yep.
I can't wait for Dune to come out so I can shit on it.
You know what? As beautiful as the trailer was, it does not have even the old Dune, which was very strange film. It does not have
I love that film.
It does not have that Shakespearean quality that I want from Frank Herbert.
Not at all.
I want that.
Does Hollywood do any Shakespearean quality anymore?
Well, I don't know.
But not even the music.
Denny Zimmer. Have you guys gone to see stage performances? Is that something that you guys like to do? Because I do that. I like that. Okay, so you know what I really, really hate in stage dressing for opera, especially opera, because when you go to opera, it's like a tapestry of words and audio going together, and it's like, okay, I want you to spin me a web of images that go along with what I'm hearing, even if I don't understand the French or the German or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
To. I hate minimalist set dressing. And in opera, you minimally dress the thing for your postmodern mentality, and you're just like, I just want to strip everything down to just the voices. Like, no, that's stupid. The music, the performances, the whole thing, it's meant to be a pageantry. I expect people to wear complicated outfits when they're singing opera. I expect makeup. I expect passion that's equal to the amount of, because it's the character of the thing. It's very like hyperbolic. That's the way I view that kind of stage performances. And then, vaudeville has its character, and American musicals, with their kind of like tap shoeing thing, you expect them to wear certain kinds of, you would minimize that set dressing. And then if I were to go see a modern interpretation of Rent and it was minimalist, I'd be like, well, this makes sense because it's just a bunch of people in buildings or something like that. You know what I mean? Everything needs to fit in a certain context. And I don't feel like that's respected anymore.
It's
I
still
feel like
difficult to
that
do
happens all the
classic
time.
opera unless it's basically designed that way. So you can't really do Flight of the Valkyrie or some Puccini works without some like accompaniment. Like nowadays, if you go to an opera, whatever
Right.
opera it is, they will either give you the brochure for all the language, or they'll have at the top of the stage where the curtain hangs, they'll broadcast the lyrics as they're sung in translated English or whatever the language is. So it gives you more access to opera. Because most people don't watch opera. They don't know about it. It's the best music you can buy. Live performance opera is the best music. Whatever music you like, you can do like death metal. I don't really care. Live music from a trained opera singer is phenomenal. And
Yes.
you just have to listen to any of the old great opera singers on TV or some are still around. Their voices are incredible. There's no comparison. And it doesn't matter what they sing. But when they do dramatic stuff, it is absolutely fantastic. So, yes, it might not be your thing. And just like whiskey, it's an adapted taste. You have to appreciate it in a certain context. You have to understand where it's coming from. A lot of this stuff is from Vienna and Italy. And there's a huge European influence with opera. And if you really want to get into the dramatic works and the tragedies, I recommend checking them out. So it's not for everyone, the same way ballet is not for everyone. But these stage productions...
I like ballet too. It's all about how you rig it. Like if you I watched the Nutcracker in Boston a couple years ago, and I was like, wow, this is really entertaining. I didn't think this was going to be good because it's the fucking Nutcracker. I've seen it 1 billion times. How can you improve on it? But they went all out with the costumes, with the dancing.
That's the point.
A lot of people, and I was like, holy shit, this is a performance.
Stage is a magical place where everything's dark and they just focus this one area, like kind of like a movie theater, and they give you this performance art of everything they're good at, and that is obviously ballet if it's ballet, but costume, cosmetics, lighting, visuals, back sets, and all these other props and all these Technicolor methods they use for lighting. Like everything they got, they will throw at you. Nowadays,
rotating backdrops. They have like
Les Mis had a gigantic rampart that was made out of junk that rotated as it came onto the stage. It was crazy. And there's people riding on it. They were throwing things.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. Even the pyrotechnics.
Projection mapping, the treadmills I've seen stages turn so that there's a new angle that you looked at.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Yeah, so I like that stuff, but what I'm trying to say is imagine you're watching a performance of Wagner, and it's this big epic orchestra playing, and everybody on stage is just wearing T-shirts and look like they rolled out of bed. That's the shit that I hate. Or they're just wearing nondescript things. It's like kabuki theater without the makeup. It's like, what is the point then?
I remember watching,
and I feel like I get that a lot.
Cirque du Soleil. They were in town doing, what's the horse one? I can't remember the name of it. But
I know what you're talking about. That was near me for a long time in Burbank,
California. It was. They actually created. They generate a stage which allows water to flow through, and the horses are climbing up the stage and galloping down it. It was
holy shit,
crazy.
You know why? Because it's the difference between movies are not as epic as insane stage performances or live performances. Like people, even if you could virtualize everything, you can make a VR interactive world, it still won't be the same as watching your favorite artist, on stage, or seeing somebody, perform a complex routine, or somebody, do the first 1080 fakey kickflip on a skateboard. It's like there's something about being there that is separate from live performance and recorded performances that I think is actually really cool. And I think people want to pay for that. And that's why I think that that element alone is what makes live performances timeless. And so then if you play with that idea that people want a live experience from the creative direction perspective, it's hard for you to make a truly bad performance. It's only when you start to dismiss the idea that I'm trying to create this world for people to exist in, and I have audio, visual, and the stage to perform all of these different things on people.
It's the same
That's
thing.
What you gotta work with.
It's the same thing with not appreciating like rap music or death metal or all these other kinds of music which you just don't get because you're just not used to it. You've never heard it before. It's the same way you don't know the higher grade qualities of wine or whiskey because you've only had the cheap stuff which is sold everywhere. And then you go, oh, this is the actual good stuff. Here, try that. You're like, wow, I've never had that flavor in my mouth ever. What is that? That's tequila. You're like, really? I thought that was fire water, like grappa or something crazy. But no, that's tequila. And there's all kinds of tequila you don't know until you try, until you go to Mexico, I guess. I mean, you could buy it locally nowadays, but if you really want the authentic...
You can't have a taste in something without trying it, right? Like,
exactly. So
reaction.
People don't know until you actually go out and try. It's the same with opera. If you don't know live music, go out and do it. Anyway, we are rambling. I'm sorry about that. I want to close up here, but yeah, no, it's Glib. Thanks for popping on. This video didn't go too far, but it wasn't as bad as our other videos. She's not as commie as we thought, as crazy as we thought. Just threw a little anecdotes.
Snarky.
Trying to be funny, which is I appreciate. I don't mind people trying to make me entertained.
It's not funny when you say something that you're like, oh, this is really going to stir up some emotions. Tee-hee. That's not funny.
She's working on a few other issues, not just comedy. So yeah, I can forgive.
I was more entertained by your guys' conversation before this video.
Hell yeah.
That's why we're here. So let's go to stream memes. Let me just pop those in right now. I don't know if we have any.
Stream meme.
Got a whole bunch. Okay. Da-da-da. Alrighty, this is from 535. Gorgeous Rex. Oh my God, corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. We got our wonderful YouTuber, and what the hell is that?
Is that Jim Sterling?
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a crazy looking fellow in a purple something. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Aunt May Marissa Tomei, born in 1964 and 2016. Wow. Okay, I stand corrected. That is a very attractive looking woman from the 60s.
She's a Jill.
No. Oh, Morty.
Not bad. With Uncle Ben gone, Aunt May had to support Peter somehow. And oh God, is that the same actress?
That's her.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's her.
Jesus. Okay, I'm not going to play Lex Luthor learns about Flash's secret identity because I've already seen it, and it's going to get caught by the copyright. Yeah. Every time Cav hears ridiculous on the Smudcast. Yeah, I know. He doesn't watch us. That's okay. Oh my God. Who cares about classism when you can be Bonesaw? Look at that hair.
Bonesaw, brother.
It's like
I got you for 3 minutes.
That is a lot of hair. I feel like I'm watching the 80s or something.
Yeah, it's back then.
Wow. Here's Eric. Thank you. Spring allergies, coronavirus, or the seasonal flu. It's got to be one of them. Spider-Man listening to a biology analogy from the Smudcast. Yeah, that was kind of neat. That went on way too long, too. When Spud's trying to move on.
Though.
When Spud's trying to move on, but
that was great. Shut up, everybody. We're moving on.
But the Rambler has more to say. One more thing. Yeah.
What about that?
Everyone's looking at Spider-Man memes, and I'm just sitting here masturbating. Okay, well, you do you, Eric. MCU's Spidey real mentor should have been him. Give me rent.
Give me rent.
Okay.
You get your rent when you fix this damn door.
Make me cookies with almonds in them. Or whatever he says. I don't know.
Miles is just invisible. That's great.
Imagine somebody gives you cookies and you're like, I want these other ones. Like, go make them for me right now.
Imagine Smud is Tony. Spider-Man Far From Home. Where it's... Why is he dirt? Is that...
He turns into dust.
Oh, is that the snap?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. And here we have Tony Stark liking Aunt May. Who knew 60-year-old women could look like Aunt May? Oh my god.
I wanted to put your face on it, but it just I don't know, my phone wasn't working.
Spider-Man 5 from home, Aunt May alone from home.
When I hear Spider-Man class and militarization. Wow. What is going on?
That's a real. I think that is a real picture, not the commie stuff. But...
Is that dude from that crazy TED Talk we saw?
See, I don't remember honestly.
Okay, well, I can imagine him doing something like this, but obviously not the image in the background.
That'd be great, yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. Video man. Tony Stark represents the government and the military. Meanwhile, Tony Stark, you want my property? You can't have it, but I did you a big favor. I've successfully privatized world peace. And when you're talking about Tony Stark, or rather capitalism, private property is one of its major proponents or tenants. So, yeah, I don't know how that's socialized.
Exactly.
Militaristic.
We don't need socialism.
And the government
Iron
was
Man,
like, "Fuck you, Tony Stark. Fuck you, buddy."
Iron Man can just tell Jarvis to pave all the roads for free, motherfucker. We don't need this socialist bullshit. Libertarianism. Iron Man-tarianism.
Government agency pointing at a government agency. Oh. Oh my god, what is this? Authoritarian. Okay. Whether it impacted our precious freedoms or not, that's what we needed. So economic left and authoritarianism, fine. Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say it is too much to ask for both. Okay.
Is it too much to ask for both?
All right. So freedom economically, but being in control of the military, something like that. The left, libertarian, is I will be reinstituting prima nocta. Oh, jeez. And the right is you want my property, you can't have it, but I did. Okay, so the same quote as before. Yeah. All right. There we go.
Libertarianism.
Spider-Man, according to Video Man, everywhere I go, I see his face. A cult of personality.
Post of Stalin.
Yeah, it's a cult of personality and he's wearing, of course, the beret of the Red Star. Okay.
My comrade.
And the last one from Gorgeous Rex, Mouse.
Really love their military uniforms, right wing or left wing or whatever.
I don't know how this is the animated series for Mouse, but
Mouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Different comic
really
book.
Depressing violin music and
yeah, really, really depressing. Exactly.
Voice acting. Yeah. That was a good comic though. It was a really good comic.
Yeah, the translation is going to be a little different, but I honestly think it could work if they keep things bare bones simple and don't.
They assigned that as reading in my English class one year, and I was frustrated because I had already read it. So everybody's like, "Let's read this really slowly, and let me ask you a bunch of questions about it." Like, I already read this shit. I don't care anymore. I've moved on. Can we read The Punisher instead of War Journal?
You got to read the top 4 or top 5 comic books of all time.
Oh.
Today, class, we're learning about the benefits of vigilantism in popular culture.
Nobody put pizza time.
Here's how you start your own militia, class.
Fine, I'll do it myself.
Well, that was what's her name again? That was verilybitchie. Thank you for the recommendation. So too bad we couldn't go that far because it's it is a long video, but she only makes
it's just too stupid, honestly.
Yeah, there's not much to say. It's roughly just talking about the films and then just throwing in some anecdotes about capitalism or whatever.
There was some good, accurate review of the original history. I was like, I was agreeing with that.
Interesting, but redundant. Yeah,
minutes,
we don't need to know that Spider-Man was poor in all the iterations. It's like, that's great.
We get it. You're a Spider-Man fan and you want communism.
Yeah.
Spider-Man was poor, which is why we need to overthrow the government. Tee-hee.
Yeah, that was kind of silly. Anyway, thank you for the suggestion, guys. Keep them coming.
Oh yeah, and that movie that what's her name? Marissa Tomei.
Yes.
Called The Wrestler. If you want to check it out.
The Wrestler? She's that old?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in that movie, because you asked earlier.
60-year-old Marissa
Want
Tomei.
to check it out.
Alrighty.
She might have been younger in that movie. I don't know. I don't know how old that movie is.
Well, obviously she was younger in that movie than she is now.
Yeah.
'Cause it's in the past. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyway, guys, thank you for the suggestions. Keep them coming, and just keep in mind what's happening this Friday. And I think Dunn.
Oh no, what's happening Friday?
Dunn has already chosen. Dunn has already chosen a video for us.
Oh no, Maggie. Oh.
I don't know which one it is, but he gave me a list, and they're all under 40 minutes. So it'll be a killer Friday, probably Saturday as well, if we desire to go further. But who knows what will happen this Friday? Anyway, thank you so much. Have yourself a great night. Take it easy. Get a drink of water. Get a scotch, whatever you feel like tonight. And